We change it. All right, time to be a different person.
You're now tuned in to the NBA Deeper Dive.
That's the only way I'm gonna be able to finish in the future is hearing that voice, Jordan. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, February 1st. I am Josh Engleman, and that is not Adam Scher, joined by Terry McBride for this one. Team McB in the house. So chat, get ready to have that conversation for the next 10 minutes. We are brought to you by Jock Market. We've got a big one, and basically everything that Adam and I talked about this morning on the strategy show has been flipped on its head. Lots of guys have been ruled out. Everything has changed for the Golden State Warriors. We've got a ton to talk about, but let's start here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Terry, what's up?
It's been a wacky kind of afternoon, a little last minute duty here like we were talking about before. And slate where pretty much everything changes. I think this probably answers the question from that guy this morning in chat who wondered why he can't enter a lineup at 10:30 in the morning. Yeah. Slate's like today. Things are completely different than they were.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you put that lineup in at the beginning. And by the way, if that wasn't a troll, I wonder if the question was just like, can I reserve my entry?
And he was just not able
no one seemed to go that direction. I was just like, I wonder if he just means like, am I allowed to make a team right now?
Yeah, that's fair. Like, can I just put a placeholder in and then go back and edit it? Well, Sorry, person out there. Yes, if that was your legitimate question and we failed to answer it correctly, then sorry, I guess. But that was either a hell of a long troll or he was legitimately asking those silly questions. But it's slates like this that you don't want to do that for, obviously.
I mean, let's just say that he put in a lineup that didn't have someone get ruled out. All 9 of those guys are still in, and it wasn't like, oh, I have Biyombo and now it's Ayton. Like let's say there were 9 actual plays if it was a FanDuel lineup. He's probably what now, like 25, 30 points off the median lineup or off the optimal lineup, just in the changes that have happened at this point. Like it lost by default, and it didn't have to lose anything. That's why it gets bad.
And that's what we were trying to, get across to him in that conversation. Then another one came up in Discord where we're talking about, the differences between playing some of those value plays and following the math, following the numbers like we all, you should be doing out there versus going with your gut and plugging guys in. But it all plays back into that conversation about where is the optimal lineup? Where is the ceiling, the highest point of the win point likely to come in based on that? And what are the plays that are going to help you vault those probabilities up that ladder? And yeah, to your point, it was a 309 optimal at that point in the day, if I remember correctly, on FanDuel, and it's now gone up to 341, which would take my expected win score from like 405 to 415 to 435 to 450, probably higher. You were saying 470 something earlier, and
yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw. So if I take my optimal lineup and give everybody a standard deviation, so like something that seems relatively normal to me, if you're going to hit a ceiling game and have a lineup that wins the a contest with 50,000 people in it. That's 474 on FanDuel right now.
That's unreal.
No,
yeah. And I'm just looking at, I ran 2,000 lineups through 1,000 simulations of the slate before we started. And I mean, my top 175 lineups all maxed out over 440 in their highest run. I've got a number of them that are going well over 450 a number of times. And that's what I'm looking for is, those ones that are repeat performers in the high 450s, the 430s. And those are going to be my top entries of the night. And I'm looking for how they sim out. So, I mean, we're talking about a much, much different slate than we were talking about earlier. That was a 410 score that we were looking for earlier in the day.
Absolutely. Dwayne Smith says, Josh saying something against the city of Chicago again. We're going to beef. Holla at your boy. You're not the only one that's going to want that beef, considering our home office is in the great city of Chicago. So yeah, trust me, that shot was at a whole bunch of people. I needed to try to save face. Friend of the program, AB, was not happy that I wanted Florida to break off into the ocean and sink. He was just like, oh, my family's there, man. It's going to be like a bad way for me. I was like, well, we're going to tell them it's going to happen. We're going to evacuate them safely, and then we'll get rid of the state of Florida.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of already happening in just very, very slow motion as the seas rise. So we'll see we'll see that play out over the next 50 or so years. But yeah, if we were to do it in a shorter time frame, we'd give everybody like 24, 48 hours notice to clear out of Dodge.
Right. I'm just trying to make life better for Mother Nature. You know what I mean?
It's only fair.
You ready to dive into this one?
Yeah, we might as well.
All righty. New Orleans Pelicans. Let me refresh this table so I get the right lines. 2-point dogs in Detroit, 216.5 total. And for this one, we don't really have as much information as we were hoping. Brandon Ingram is still questionable. We did go the other direction and find out that Josh Hart not going to be in this one. So we have Joval pulling about 25% ownership on FanDuel. We've got Joval, Devontae Graham, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker all around 10% on DK. But the big question here is, I have no idea who's going to start at the 4 for the Pelicans, considering they went with Jackson Hayes yesterday against the Cavs. I don't necessarily think that happens, but now that we know that it's on the table, New Orleans has become a little bit more confusing.
Yeah, it's just kind of a mess, and that's kind of how it's borne out in all of our probability marks right now. And kind of, just looking through it, there are some minor value points on the FanDuel slate. I guess you could call Nickeil Alexander-Walker kind of a value point on the DK slate at 5,200, like one of those lower mid-range values with multi-position eligibility, but he's owned efficiently on both sites. He's not overly appealing. And then you look at like Joval pulling down a massive ownership share, basically double his optimal lineup rate on the FanDuel slate. That becomes a little bit concerning, particularly when we're getting some of our value plays at center over there. We've also got Jokic on the slate, probably or possibly on the slate anyway, as the pay up option at that one. So that becomes concerning. The Ingram news obviously is going to have a massive impact on that play. So don't believe the ownership mark right now until we get news that's going to look really low, look like an appealing situation with leverage. But until we get that news, we don't really know. And then beyond that, it's a total crapshoot around some of these guys in terms of their minutes expectation and what we can see. So without news, this is really hard to nail down.
It really is. Figuring out who that fifth starter is going to be, and potentially like third or fourth and fifth starter if we don't get Ingram. I'm leaving Ingram out for right now, which means that I can pretty much guarantee he will be ruled in. I don't mind as much since it's a 7:00 game. It is a piece of information that we will get and probably should have by 6:30. So I'm not worried about it too much. I'm just kind of interested in a lot of the pieces of the Pelicans. If Jackson Hayes happens to start, $3,600 power forward on FanDuel. Keep your eyes on that one. I only gave him 24 minutes, but I think he works as a value play. Otherwise, like I think it's just sort of cast a wide net. I don't see Herb Jones and Joe Val and Devontae Graham and Nickeil Alexander-Walker being all that different across the board. They look similar. They look good. I don't really have a priority in all of them.
No, me neither. Normally for me with this team, it's Joe Val on a night where he looked better than this, or where there's not necessarily a big blocker in the center spot. And there's kind of a few blockers in the center only spot today on FanDuel. So I don't love him there. So yeah, no real priority here, but probably some pieces. Probably, there'll be Pellies spread through a lot of my lineups tonight, I would think.
Keep your eyes peeled for this one, guys. Starting lineup will be everything for the Pels. They got a couple different directions they can go now with Josh Hart also being out. So keep your eyes peeled for it. It's the best we could do right now. Make sure you're watching live before lock after this one. On the Pistons side, this one feels a little bit easier. Highest owned guy on either, hold on, gotta pause here. Generic name says Josh hates Cubans. Now, I assume you mean the people, which is not true. I also don't really know many Cuban people. I love the sandwich. My preferred sandwich order on any sort of sandwich restaurant's menu would be a Cuban, or if I need to say Cubano. I don't think I'm doing that correctly, but you guys know what I mean. Yeah, that is my jam right there. So absolutely not generic name.
Yeah, and if they did mean the people because of the whole Florida thing, I mean, speaking of somebody who's half Cuban at least, I've always been enjoyed your friendship and everything. I've never experienced any hatred from you. You've got me here on the show, so I think we're okay.
And let's be clear here. If I hated Cubans, I would want Cuba to sink into the ocean. I wanted Florida to go away. If we want to attach Cuba to the base of the United States, I think that I can get there for that. I'm okay.
Take it,
right?
Take it. Our sandwiches get better. Our cigars get better. Our baseball gets better. Take it. Across the board, our healthcare system gets better. There's a lot of things that Cuba does better. Our literacy rate.
It's a little bit different in 2022 than it had been in the past. Sure. I'm not a cigar guy.
No?
Nah.
I like a good cigar. I'm not like a big cigar guy. I never have like a box of cigars in my house, but I really do enjoy like sitting around just having a conversation for 2 hours over, brandies and a cigar or something like that. Like that's just a cool environment to me,
I would like to, certainly not out. It would be a hobby that I would like. If I take 2 or 3 hits off of a good cigar, I'm probably going to get dizzy and throw up on myself. For some reason,
in the nicer cigar clubs with like the lockers and stuff that people pay for to keep their cigars in, big leather chairs and all of that. They frown a little bit.
I don't know what it is. I can't. They've never like settled with me.
Yeah,
it's kind of I'm a brown liquor guy, so they would naturally go well for me, but. No, I'm just going to see that brown liquor again if I do it. The highest owned guy on the
versions and stuff. Anyway,
the highest owned guy on the Pistons today on either FanDuel or DraftKings is 8.6% owned Cade Cunningham on FanDuel. I actually think that number is mildly low, even with Jeremy Grant back now for the Pistons. I'd like to get to a bit more Cade Cunningham, and if we do maintain his ownership sub 10%, I probably will. I can't say that there's an actual priority, though, either side of this one, FanDuel or DraftKings for the Pistons. Do you see anything?
No, nobody really stands out. A lot of guys sub 10% optimal. A lot of guys sub 10% boom score probabilities. I agree. Just the generic 50-point capability of a Cade Cunningham is kind of appealing here. 33 points on the FanDuel projection, 34 in the median on DK. And he's at like one of those fair upper mid-range type prices, 7,800, 8,100 across the two sites, multi-position. It's just not bearing out in the probability. So he's just kind of a mix and match guy for me. But I don't mind the idea of if you wanted to, say, double the slate's 8.6% ownership, get him out 15, 16%. You're not doing much damage to a full slate of lineups, and he's got flexibility so that you're still getting to a wide range of combinations. You're still able to rotate through a lot of those warriors who do land in the guard spots. So I'm fine with getting to a little bit more Cade than the field. I'd probably come in below the field on Grant. I don't see any real appeal in any of the other guys. I do tend to get to a fair amount of Sadiq Bey, just situationally, like he's always priced somewhat fairly, comes up a decent amount for me. So I would expect I'd probably end up over his 7% as well, but there's no real justification for it other than he's just kind of appropriately priced for the 27-point median projection.
I can't get out of chat today. And the Pistons are not interesting.
And you chided at him for that this morning.
I know I did. Green checkmark said cigar smokers don't call it a hit, Josh. I gave myself up on that one, I guess, didn't I?
I don't actually know. I've always said hit or pull, I guess. Is it something? I wonder if it's something different than pull.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those are the only two things I can think of. Draw, maybe draw.
I don't know the cigar vernacular.
I'm just thinking of the line.
I do know the other ones.
Rounders. He's talking about the smooth, nutty finish and the draw, nutty finish, earthy tones, something like that.
Yeah, I got nothing there. I got nothing. All right, let's get this Twitter thread over here so I can see everything. Good there. I don't have anything else for the Pistons. I think that we can move on from this one. Everybody's saying, a lot of people saying puff.
Okay, that's.
I mean,
kind of easy. That feels basic. That feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel it. It doesn't. It doesn't feel like. Okay, so it doesn't feel like the right gendered term for cigar smoking.
Fair, yeah. That seems a little, I get.
It's 2022, so we can use words to do whatever we want to do nowadays. But it doesn't. That doesn't feel right. Puff doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I can't see
it feels too soft for a cigar smoker.
Yeah, a bunch of old timey, type guys sitting around in that cigar room.
Carl Anthony Towns would puff on a cigar. How's that for the Cat fans in there? All righty. Schedule for the rest of the night. This one's easy. NBA live before lock coming up after this one at 6:00. They will go for 90 minutes for you guys. Plus, we've got some free content. NBA projections, NHL projections, and PGA rankings are all free. Jason Holland says, soft like wearing a purple shirt. I only wear this purple shirt because Laffy's wife likes it.
Oh, yowza. All right. That's what I thought you were going to say.
He's not watching. It doesn't matter. Super chat from Jay Carmen. Been to Cuba twice. You don't want their health care.
All right. Fair enough.
Depends who you are.
If that's what you, I mean, did you go to Cuba because you were sick and didn't get good care? Like what experience did you have with their healthcare down there? Because they have one of the top rated healthcare systems in the entire world and they have free universal healthcare for all their citizens. But, if you don't believe in those things, then I guess they have shitty healthcare.
I legitimately had no idea.
Yeah. They're one of the most highly regarded healthcare systems in the world.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that I send Laffy a DM here in the next couple seconds. As we transition, I want him to know. I want him to know. Washington Wizards 11-point dogs in Milwaukee, 229 total. And the biggest piece of news in this game is that Bradley Beal is not going to be playing in it. And that kind of changes the things for Spencer Dinwiddie. He's about 25% owned on FanDuel and on DraftKings. Kyle Kuzma, similarly owned across both sites. And then it seems like the entire field has no idea what to do with the rest of the Wizards. So talk to me about whatever it is that you want to talk to me about for the Wizards.
Yeah, it sounds about right with the no idea what to do in the middle there and with the rest of these guys. But Dinwiddie's the standout spot for me. Kuzma, I can get there. 7,200, I think, is about fair. He's drawing a little bit more ownership than I would want with a quarter of the field rostering him on FanDuel. And then on the DK side of things at 7,400, he comes up a little less optimal than I would want with Kuzma. Dinwiddie, I'm more willing to fight through the ownership for here, I think, just based on the opportunity. He jumps from 28.3% assist rate to like 35.7%. I think if I'm remembering the earlier show correctly, with Beal off the court, he jumps in usage from 20.3 to like 25% this season. So just more opportunity, more facilitation in the offense, taking more shots. Definitely see an upside for Dinwiddie here. We've got him projected nicely at 30.85, 13.8% boom score probability. FanDuel 14.6 on DK. He's over-owned technically in terms of leverage on both sides, but again, I think it's one that we can get away with just based on the comfy mid-range salary here.
I don't really know what to do with this Washington team. I thought someone was going to pop. Like we had Denny popping pretty aggressively in the ownership to start the day. I think that we recalibrated some minutes at that one. Doesn't necessarily get the same bump that we thought. And that has now come down to 8.5. So at 3,800 on DK.
Yeah, with the $3,000 price difference between him and Kuzma with the exact same positioning on FanDuel, I'm getting them roughly equivalently in this 2,000 lineup crunch that I ran earlier. We'll see what it would end up like in terms of what would go into lineups, what are the top performing ones. But Denny's at least on the board for me. I agree. He would probably be my next man up in terms of if I had to pick guys from this team. Were you getting to any Thomas Bryant? He was the guy I was curious about where his minutes would go. We've only got him at 19.4. What do you think of his situation right now?
I gave him 20 minutes as well. So basically the same spot.
Yeah, so
here's the interesting thing about Washington for today. And it's different than other spots where you're not really sure what to do because there's minutes upside to all of these guys. So while everybody might look normal, like relative to their ownership, the swings are massive. Like you don't necessarily need a different performance out of someone. You just need Denny to play 32 minutes instead of 26, or you need like Montrezl Harrell to get in foul trouble and Thomas Bryant to play 26 minutes instead of 20. A lot of these guys, Kispert, Denny, the two bigs, even Howell Neto or Rui to a degree, the fact that all of these guys can fall into extra minutes is where I think this game starts to get kind of interesting. I just don't know who that's going to be. My most likely scenario would be to just be on the opposite side of ownership. But I mean, when you look at it on DK, KCP, Kispert, Avdia, Harrell, and Bryant are at 9, 11, 9, 8, and 10. So those are all basically the exact same number. My guess is that I just end up having like 2% of 4 or 5 of these guys, and I won't actually be happy with it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that makes sense. And earlier in the day, like Neto at 3,000 on the DK slate, point guard and shooting guard, was drawing the eye a little bit. But I think some of that's gone away through virtue of the fact that we're just going to be playing some of those really optimal looking Warriors in those spots. A lot of those guys just outpace him at this point. We've got him at a 21.8 minute projection with the idea that he could get out to 26 or something like that. He could definitely deliver at least slate bending value at that point. But it's just like you were saying, it's just kind of in the wash. It's just really hard to figure out which one of those guys might see those minutes and where they might go.
I'm Real Forever said, you guys hear that the teammates don't like Dinwiddie. I have heard that.
I don't care. That impacts my thought process. Not at all.
No, he'll be one of my most exposed players today.
Same.
I have him as like the inside the top 5 of best plays you can find today on.
I mean, let's take that to its conclusion. Like, all right, so Dinwiddie's dribbling up the floor. He calls the play. He calls Denny Avdia's number over in the corner, tries to work it over, and Denny just goes up and doesn't catch the ball when he passes it to him and lets it fly. So there's a turnover. What are we thinking here? Who cares if they don't like him? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter at all. It is kind of crazy that it's happened within like 4 months of being on the Wizards. That's not ideal.
That says. Right. Yeah. If we want to talk about him as a person, that might be a different story. But for his DFS rates, I really don't care.
Isaiah Battles thinks that Kuzma is going to get 30 rebounds today. That I might take the under on that one.
That would be a strong performance. Bit of an outlier. Not one of them in my rosters. 13% rebounding percentage on the season, but we could get there.
Milwaukee Bucks basically at full strength. No George Hill. That's about it. Giannis pulling pretty healthy ownership on FanDuel at 30%. He's 12% owned on DraftKings. No one else on DK is in the 10% or higher bucket. Holiday and Portis are on FanDuel. Just easier to get to Portis with the power forward eligibility. Similar story for Drew Holiday having the point guard shooting guard instead of just point guard. That's sort of how I see it too. I will happily get to Giannis. I think Drew Holiday and Bobby Portis both look solid on FanDuel. I don't necessarily have any major priorities here outside of the FanDuel piece for Giannis. Everybody else is just sort of okay to non-existent.
Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it. Basically, just looking over at the DK board, all single-digit optimal lineup rates. The boom score probabilities on, if you look at Portis, 17 and change. If you look at Drew, 10-4-5. Not awful, but with those optimal lineup rates and owned efficiently, there's nothing really there other than just some mix and match viability. You can rotate them through the combinations, but there's nobody there to go out of your way for. Giannis is absolutely spectacular on any given slate. Totally fine if you've got 12 grand to pay for him in a power forward or center spot on DK. 11 grand is even better on FanDuel, power forward, small forward. Totally don't care about 30% ownership. Happy about the 26% optimal rate. Fire away. I'm getting to a little bit less Portis on this slate in particular. I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't had a chance to poke at the edges to see why. He's a guy who, like you said, typically because of that power forward eligibility comes up quite a bit for me. And I get to a lot of lineups with him and Giannis on slates like this normally. Doesn't seem like it's going that way today, but I wouldn't be surprised to be over the field on Portis anyway. Somewhere in the 20-25% range I'd be fine with.
I'm okay with that when it comes to Portis. I assume I end up over on him. I tend to get a little bit heavier on the decent values of guys that also have that power forward eligibility. It just starts funneling everything for me. So I think he looks really good today. A little nervous about his minutes in this one. Wouldn't surprise, like when you see these 11-point games, especially with Milwaukee here, like I wouldn't be surprised if Bobby Portis didn't get his final rotation.
Wouldn't totally shock me. I mean, it's, we've only got him projected out at 28 for tonight. He put up a clunker 16 in 23 minutes the last time out, 0.79 or 0.80 rather. Having problems rounding that third digit off here. 0.8 fantasy points per minute in 28 minutes a game. So if it comes down to that 23-ish, 25-minute range again, it could put a ding in it. But, we're looking at somewhat comfortable upside anyway, a 30-point median projection in only 28.8 minutes. I'm still relatively comfy with it. And I think if they're that far ahead where he's not necessarily going to be playing that last rotation, he's most likely contributed a decent amount to that. So I'm okay with getting to him, I think.
Anything else for the Milwaukee Bucks?
Now, everybody else on the board kind of just, they're priced like who they are. They're owned like who they are. They project out in probability marks like who they are. Nobody really exceptional. You pointed out Drew, 10% optimal on FanDuel. I'm fine going to that, but he's owned a little bit beyond that. And his boom score doesn't really stand out, only 12% boom score. So it's okay to get to him, and you can plug and play him in different combinations, but he's not somebody to really go out of your way for either there.
The Miami Heat are 1.5-point dogs in Toronto, 210 total. We did get news that Jimmy Butler will be active for this one. We do not yet know the status of PJ Tucker. Butler's the only guy that anybody appears to be going to. 16% owned on FanDuel, 16% owned on DraftKings. That's a little weird to me. I'm happy to get to him. I don't have any issue with the price. Doesn't really feel like the best Jimmy Butler matchup against Toronto. They just have a sea of dudes that they can throw at him that make life miserable. Could be like a big assist day for Jimmy Butler. To me, I'm more interested in Bam Adebayo and to a lesser extent, Tyler Hero, who I still think sucks, but I did catch some heat for that in comments and on Twitter. Bam Adebayo, 8,200 on FanDuel with power forward eligibility at 9% owned. To me, that just feels a little bit weird. I like this matchup a lot for Bam. And I think Tyler Hero, whether it's 6,500 on DK or 6K on FanDuel, if he's going to have 28% plus usage, like there are just going to be days where he takes 25 shots. And like, I want to be around for those days. I think he's a little underrepresented as well. I don't have much other interest in Miami. We would need to see Tucker be out to try to free up a little bit of extra minutes for more value, but it's Butler, it's Bam, it's Tyler Hero.
Same for me. I agree on trying to get to additional shares of Bam. That said, it's kind of an effort. He's not really coming up very much naturally for me. So it's a situation where I would have to give him a little bit of a nudge. I think we've got him projected fairly accurately, maybe a little bit, 31.7 minutes. He averages 33.3. So if you want to call it an additional couple of minutes there, I'm fine with giving him a little bit more on the bone to get him, just to get to more of them to put into the mix when I sim lineups and I sort lineups. I'd like to be above that 8.7% on FanDuel, 5.7% on DK is fine at the center only spot. You've got the util to work with over there, but I do like the idea of getting to him a little bit more aggressively at power forward on FanDuel. Jimmy Butler, kind of, like you said, kind of coming in owned as who he is. I would probably be around the field, but if not that, under the field. I don't think I'm going to be extending out to get to Jimmy today. I don't love the matchup here either. I think the Hero thing kind of does play with the notion if he's going to be deferring a little bit more, maybe it's more of an assist night for Jimmy, like you said, then that does naturally lead to the idea that Hero will be taking a little bit more shots. So I could see that, but he doesn't really pop for me in the numbers either. Pretty much this entire team is a take what I can get situation, except for Bam, where, like I said, I would kind of be inclined to get a little bit more of him because I do think that 8,200 is an underprice for him.
It really is. It's just, if he were just center, it would be a different story. And obviously it should just be center. He's not playing power forward for a single second on Miami. That's insanity. But I'm happy he gets the power forward. And I think that's really what becomes appealing here. It's just hard to go too much deeper on Miami.
Yeah, it's ultimately just weird that FanDuel didn't just add a util spot with the way that they're arbitrarily throwing the multi-position around. I like it with this, just with the multi-position without the util. I think it makes for an interesting game, but man, they're making some strange calls to make that work.
They really do. It's frustrating. I don't know what they're doing for half of these positions. Sometimes it makes such little sense. I mean, Paul Reed being a shooting guard earlier this season was the biggest travesty of all of it.
Which one? I missed.
Paul Reed was a shooting guard on the Sixers. It's just like, no, that's not how this works. All right, for the Raptors, if you don't know this yet, here's the Toronto Raptors lesson for you. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, and Gary Trent are likely to play 36 minutes or more in a competitive game, with Siakam and VanVleet having no issue getting to, 40, 42 minutes. Siakam, the only guy in double digits on both sites from an ownership perspective. I think Fred VanVleet is getting wildly slept on. I don't understand why, but I have him twice as likely to be in the optimal than our current ownership projections are showing. So I assume I'm well over the field on Fred VanVleet, but give me all of these guys. And I don't really have too big of a preference either way.
Yeah, this is the team, I say it pretty much every time they come up. It's a team where I almost always I get good mixes of them in a lot of different lineups. I don't really get a ton of them in the same lineup together through a crunch. They just appear at the right rates for me in a lot of situations. So I think it's one where I'm going to want to be ahead of the field on Fred VanVleet, like you said. I'm going to want to be ahead of the field on Scotty Barnes, like you said. They're both coming in under 10% owned on FanDuel with rates above that in terms of their optimal lineup rate. Pascal Siakam is 9,200 is around where I cap out at wanting to pay for Pascal Siakam and just kind of accept paying for Pascal Siakam. Like, I don't think he's overly appealing at that price necessarily, but I do see that there's some general upside. I would get to him probably out of everybody. That's the one I'd be around the field the most. Field's projected around 15. If I come up 15, if I come up 10 to 12, I'm okay with that in either scenario on FanDuel. And pretty similar situation on DK. Everybody looks pretty much straight down the board, almost exactly the same. Maybe you shave off a couple optimal lineup points for Scotty Barnes and Freddie VanVleet, just based on a little bit higher salary, it looks like, across site. Well, same salary for VanVleet, so against the lower cap, a higher salary, relatively speaking. So it shaves their optimal lineup rates, but their ownership goes down proportionally with it. So I think you can roster them just as aggressively for their just raw point projections and the general notion of upside with both of them.
Yeah, I mean, if this game's competitive, they're all playing 36 plus minutes. You got to hope you get at least one or two of these guys correct. Someone is just going to break free from the pack. If this game is competitive, someone's playing well for Toronto, and it's probably one of the guys that are all playing 40 minutes.
Right. The average between those five guys, Siakam, VanVleet, Gary Trent, I'll throw him into that mix, Scotty Barnes, and OG Anunoby. Over the last 3 games, the average minutes that those 5 players have played is 44.7 minutes. They're all over a 40-minute average over the last 3 games. It's insane.
I had this question for Adam a while back. I'll ask you now. Like, I trust Toronto as an organization. I think they're one of the smarter and well-run organizations in the league. And that seems to be a consensus across the NBA media. I want to know what they see and why they have no problem with this. Like, this is clearly a decision that there are no issues with. No one disagrees with it. This is a plan from the top down. And I'm wondering what they see that's so different than basically every other team, because no one else does this. And I trust them. I'm surprised more teams aren't like, well, what the hell are they? Why are they doing it? And why don't we?
Yeah. And it's not like, I mean, they have, guys that come in and out of the rotation a little bit, but it's not like they've been racked with all these crazy, musculature type injuries or anything like that from extended use and wear and tear right now or anything. So yeah, the idea of just throwing a tight core with extreme minutes, maybe that's the next step in some of these analytics. Maybe they've got numbers that are showing that there's viability in that approach. Maybe they just don't believe in some of the pieces on the bench as well. I mean, there's always that variable in here, but yeah. There could be something to that, because this is extreme at this point with some of these minutes.
Really is. Got to hit a super chat from Dave Jones. He just gave us his FanDuel lineup. I can't do a ton with that, but it's Cunningham, Poole, Graham, Trent, Bay, Walker, Grant, Bridges, Cat. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm only going off the top of my head here, but I assume that lineup is nowhere near the optimal. There's Poole, the only guy from the Warriors there. I'm going to guess that's a tough sell here, Dave. I can't guarantee it. It's not something that I could check right now. Just like the Lonnie Walker piece is a stretch for me. Jeremy Grant is a stretch for me today. Even Sadiq Bey and Jeremy Grant together. And well, that's 3 Pistons. Yeah, took me a second to even get to that. You got to go back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't really process a lot of it, and I'm not looking at it, but just some of those names. I mean, Sadiq Bey, I said he was, kind of a mix and match piece for me, and that's how he's coming through. 3.2% of 2,000 lineups. Some of the Pistons, the other Pistons a little bit less. So yeah, that's a little concerning. Probably back to the drawing board there. Karl Anthony Towns, even like not a major piece for me on this slate. 10% of 2,000 lineups in this last crunch. So yeah, not a major piece.
I'd go back to the drawing board there. And then Nelson Resto using his message for being a member for 4 months, single entry. Should I focus on high total games? You shouldn't not focus on high total games. Like in theory, a higher total is going to create more fantasy points. If all of the guys in the high total games have salaries that are $1,000 more expensive than they should be, that's sort of the balancing point. So like, yes, but it's also in a way meaningless.
Yeah, and I wouldn't look at it until you've put in a few of the building blocks based on some of our DFS focus numbers, right? Like, don't sweat that. We're accounting for all of that first of all. So like all of the game totals, all that shit is already baked into Alex's numbers anyway. So build in some of those foundational pieces, build in a couple of Alex's optimal stars, and then maybe you've got 2 pieces left. So you say, all right, let me just go to something that looks good from one of these highly totaled games. And then you can make that decision to kind of, that's just how I'm deciding which one of these last pieces, given X to spend, I'll plug into that lineup each time. But it's not something where I necessarily want to just, I'm ruling out these games because they're totaled at 214 and I'm chasing these games because they're totaled at 225. Like, not really.
I just entered Dave Jones's lineup into my sheet. I personally have it projected for 290, and my optimal before we started this show was 370.
Yeah, that's not going to cut it. That's yeah, definitely.
I mean, nothing by it, but like, I'm not sure I could have even done that on purpose.
Yeah, it's.
I'm glad you did it though, Dave. I'm glad we could tell you to fix it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's, we're saying that to help. We're not mocking the lineup. And I get those all the time, right? I'm building in all right, this looks like it would play. This looks like it would play. You make a couple decisions and it comes out the other side and it just doesn't rank out as well. Even though you've plugged in all good players, even though you've plugged in a lot of guys that look viable, it's just about how those salaries fit together and what you can project out to on the other side of that. So nothing wrong with what you did, just not the right one.
All righty, guys, we need to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That would be Jock Market. And you can use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up at Jock Market to get a $50 bonus on your first deposit. They've turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. It's a very different mechanism than you see at some of our other sites. You can buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. You can download the app in the App Store to get started. They have markets for the NFL, which obviously is about to end, MLB, which is hopefully about to end, NHL, NBA, and PGA. You can use the pregame IPO phase to pick up shares of your favorite players, buy, sell, and hold during the game. You can do all of this from your couch. You can buy these shares before the game start. If somebody goes on a heater and you have those shares, but you want to get out, you can just sell those shares and you can just walk away at that point. You don't have to wait until the end of the game to do anything. You also get the first market guarantee. Jock Market will refund all of your losses in your first NFL and NBA market up to $100. So make sure if you're getting in and you're hopping in, go for the full bore in your first contest for $100 if you have it. There's no reason not to. Worst case scenario, you broke even. Check out the free Jock Market IPO projections that we have at awesemo.com that will help you do all of this stuff. Make sure you're doing that, guys.
$100, you can straight up corner the market on one of these players too. Like you can walk in there and just say, I'm going to buy every share of player X at $3 or two and change, and you can get them. I mean, it's a really fun site.
It really is. Zach McMurray said, would you guys set any groups for the Warriors tonight on FanDuel? Yes. We'll touch on that when we get to Golden State. So sorry, Zach, but we haven't gotten to Golden State yet. When we do, we will definitely talk a little bit about it. It's hard to say right now. We have no idea who's going to be in this starting lineup or who can actually close for Golden State, but there will be a couple pieces that we'll want to just take care of. Orlando. All right, we got 23 minutes. Orlando and Chicago. Orlando, 9-point dogs in Chicago. Everybody that's normally available is available here. On DraftKings, Wagner, Suggs, Anthony, and Carter all getting a bit of love. Wendell Carter may be getting a little bit more love than I would expect. Those guys are also getting some love on FanDuel. Now, I do think they should be owned. I think they look solid in this one. Maybe not aggressive priorities. I like Cole Anthony more than I like anything else in this game. That's probably not a surprise for anybody that watches any content that I do. What do you see for Orlando?
The Orlando side looks kind of like you described it, like a lot of guys who just kind of project out as who they are, coming up as mix and match type pieces with, sub 10% optimal lineup percentages, Wendell Carter does stand at the top of the board in terms of our optimal lineup rate, but I agree. I think he's a little bit over-owned. 6,200 power forward center doesn't really pop off the page for me at that price, just in the player and the production for the price. And with 20% of the field on him on DK, I think we can get, just positionally speaking, I think we can get different safe enough. You can roster some shares of them, but I think I would look to be below the field on them there. The 15% on FanDuel, it's probably same story. I'd probably prefer to be somewhere around 10%. He's 11% optimal. Anthony's fine. Wagner's fine. Jalen Suggs even, I guess, is fine. Sub 10% optimal, efficiently owned. Nobody really that I'm looking to go out of my way for. I like the other side of this game a little bit better.
Brandon Ingram is going to warm up to see if he could play, which is, I think, a step forward for him recently.
Yeah, for sure.
Dobie Star with the 2v2. No sight, but Cade and Giannis or Anthony Edwards and Murray. That is Cade and Giannis for me.
Yep. Yeah. Either site. Yeah, I don't really care which site.
All righty. On the Chicago side, we've got the double revenge narrative here, by the way. Wendell Carter Jr. taking on Nikola Vucevic when the mega powers explode. So for Chicago, most ownership is actually coming into Vooch on FanDuel, 22.9%. He's 8,700 there. I get it. I'm going to be under the field at that number. DeMar pulling some ownership. I think he probably looks like the best overall guy for Chicago. Levine, just because he's 8K on FanDuel, stands out. Those are the three guys that I want the most here. Maybe a couple shots on Kobe White. If Dosunmu sneaks in because he's playing 36 minutes a game, I think that's fine. But DeRozan, Levine, and Vooch are the stars here.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the mega powers exploding, I watched that happen back in the day on Saturday night's main event from my Cuban grandmother's apartment in Morningside Heights in the city. So, and she did not understand why I cared. Not
surprised there.
Yeah, those are the appealing guys on the Chicago side, kind of obvious, but they're popping out a little bit, particularly on the FanDuel slate, all pretty fair prices coming up in the higher teens over there in terms of the optimal lineup rate. The boom score probabilities are all nice. They all make nice mix and match pieces. They're owned efficiently. They don't stand out as the top most overall plays on the slate, but if I'm ahead of the field on each one of those guys, I wouldn't really sweat it. The one I'd be ahead probably the least on would be Vooch. If I'm probably more around his 22% ownership, maybe around 20, something like that, it's probably a little bit more comfy, assuming that Jokic plays. I think if Jokic doesn't play, that changes the scenario for Vooch a little bit because he'd be a more appealing pay-up option at center, although there are still some value plays to get to at the center-only spot. So as a center-only play on FanDuel, he becomes a little bit dicey. I prefer him where you can get the util flexibility on the DK slate, although he is 9,300 over there, so that kind of tempers it a little bit. But it depends what happens with some of the other available centers for the Vooch shares for me.
I hate getting to Vooch. For some reason, I never get him right. He's one of those guys I miss on a lot. When I have him, it's like, oh, he went for 17 and 7, and it's just a completely pedestrian game. And the days that I don't have him, it's like, oh, Vooch had 38 and 18. He couldn't miss.
Yeah, I feel like I'm with you on that. I tend to roster him more on his 38-point days than his 60-point days or 55-point days. But the numbers back it up. I mean, he's a 1.22 across the entire season, 1.27 across the last three, playing 35 minutes a night. There's nothing not to like about the guy other than, the hit and miss nature, I guess.
Are we on to the Denver-Minnesota game?
I think so. Nothing else I'm really excited to talk about on the Chicago side here.
2,310 people in here, just 275 likes. That one's on me. We are a little light on the likes. If you can, help us out. Hit that thumbs up. Let's get some thumbs up here for the man that is not with us today, Adam Scher, recovering in the hotel room he's been living in for the past week and will be living in until Saturday. So while Adam sleeps, we move on. Let's get those likes up for Adam. I know he would really appreciate it. I'm sure he's watching along in his hotel room.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, or that, which would be probably the first time that he's turned on a show that he wasn't on since
right.
He's been here since fall of 2018. Denver Nuggets.
We can say whatever.
4-point dogs in Minnesota, 229 total. We are waiting on the news of Nikola Jokic. 11-3 on FanDuel, 12-5 on DraftKings. Still pulling some ownership even with the Q tag. I love getting to Jokic if he is in on FanDuel at 11-3. The upside there is just massive. I've got him at 1.83 FanDuel points per minute in this matchup. Will Barton getting a little bit of love. I feel like that's just the inverse of whether or not Jokic plays. He looks fine. Not really a priority to me. Same for Gordon and Morris. If I'm getting to anybody, it's Barton, Gordon, and Morris, but I don't see them as all that interesting. Jokic is the guy I want. And on the off chance that he happens to not play, because they are on a back-to-back, we're going to be firing up some sort of DeMarcus Cousins, JaMychal Green duo, Zeke Najee. Denver starts to look really ugly and awesome at the same time if Jokic doesn't play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the scenario I'm hoping for is just that we get Jokic. He's under-owned, and I can play a shit ton of under-owned Nikola Jokic on this slate. I love him as much as you do. 1.80 fantasy points, or 1.81 rather, over the last three, 1.73 per minute over the entire course of the season. Does everything spectacularly well. I mentioned it on the show earlier today. He trails by assist percentage. He's behind only Chris Paul and James Harden at the point guard position, and he's a center. This guy's just spectacular, an amazing fantasy producer. Even at 12.5 on the DK slate, I want to be aggressively over the field on him. Right now, the field's at 8%. If we get him confirmed in, I'm hoping that news breaks after lock so that it tempers it a little bit. If he gets confirmed in, maybe it climbs to the 15%-ish range, somewhere around there. He's 22% optimal, even at that absurdly high salary. I love everything about the play. Aaron Gordon's a guy I get to a decent amount of the time when Jokic doesn't go. I like what Aaron Gordon can do in terms of facilitation in that offense. He can score the ball fairly well. He doesn't project out great right now, but nobody really tends to go to him. He's at basically a fair price, like 6,600 without Jokic out there, I think is still a fairly fair price. So I don't think it's anything to get excited about, but it's somebody I'd probably give a little bit of a nudge in terms of my my overall shares, if not my expectation, if we don't get Jokic. And then, the uncomfortableness of the boogie and whoever else might come behind that if Jokic doesn't go gets a little bit dicey there. So it does become ugly, but it would be intriguing from a DFS perspective for sure.
Yeah, and for right now, I can't speculate on if it's JaMychal Green or Cousins or Zeke Najee or whatever. We have to wait to the starting lineup. So I'm preparing as if Jokic is in, and I'm going to have a bunch of him. I will late swap if I don't have to.
And that's the way you want to be building at this point anyway, right? Build the expensive guy that you can pivot off of in, rather than building a bunch of these mid-price 3,500 JaMychal Green, 3,000 JaMychal Green. You build him into a bunch of lineups right now, you're going to be really stuck getting out of that position if you have to. So it's definitely the preferred scenario right now.
And there are plenty of centers from 8 o'clock on, whether you're getting to Wendell Carter Jr., Vooch, Towns in the same game. Looney looks, these are different salary tiers here, but Looney, you could use more salary on DeJounte Murray's of the world, Anthony Edwards, the Brooklyn guys, the Phoenix guys. So not a huge worry for me coming out of the Denver side. James Moore with the super chat. Hey guys, who's your top 3 stud/pay up options? This is on FanDuel. And who is the best value play with how everything opened up? I mean, Jokic is definitely my top pay up option. Depends where you draw the line for the rest of them. Like, I would say that it's Jokic, Giannis, and Harden if we're not counting someone like Joval at 7,400. But I love Jokic, I love Giannis, I love Harden as my top 3 pay up options.
You're looking for me to argue with Jokic, Giannis, Harden as the top 3 spend-up options on this slate. Yeah, that's totally rational. I'll throw DeJounte Murray into the mix. 1.4 fantasy points per minute. I've been getting to that guy all season long. Not going to stop now. I think he's fair at 10-2. And I remember all the way back to the beginning of the season, Greg and I had a conversation about whether he was going to crack 9 at any point. And here we are. We're totally used to paying over 10,000 for DeJounte Murray now. So just a phenomenal season out of him. Those would be my top 4.
Depending on what your definition of value is, Jordan Poole to me is the best play on the slate. Gary Payton is probably my top value play, but you're just sort of like hoping you get Golden State, right? Whether you want to say that it's Payton, Kuminga, Juan Toscano Anderson, there are a lot of choices for value plays. The best value play is coming from the Warriors, at least as of this moment.
Yeah, and basically that list makes up the 4 or 5 most highly owned guys in that crunch that I ran before with just no real cap. I was getting to the guard. I was getting to Peyton and Poole in like the 80% range across a whole ton of lineups here. And then Kevon Looney, Jonathan Kuminga. Obviously, I think we'll probably knock some of that down as we go into the one that goes into the official process here. But just for the purposes of the show, just getting to those guys are unavoidable on FanDuel. You can get to combinations that look good with all 4 of them in there. You can get to combinations that look really good with 3 of them in there, but you're going to want some of them. And like Josh said, you're going to want to get them right. I mean, that's the critical thing here.
Bean Clover Gaming says must Gabe Vincent, Poole, and Bam. One of those things is not like the other.
Come on down, Mr. Vincent. Yeah, I would agree with you on two of those three things are good.
For Minnesota, it's looking like, per the word we got earlier today, Patrick Beverley will play and D'Angelo Russell will not play. Towns, Edwards, Vanderbilt, Beverly, all 10 to 15% owned across both sites. And then Jalen Noel, 4K on FanDuel, 3,800 on DraftKings, is pulling ownership, which I find to be fascinating because to me, he's very clearly going to be likely the backup and at most in a 24-24 split with Patrick Beverley in this spot. It feels like we have enough value in other places that we don't have to go to someone who's capped from a minutes perspective. He seems like someone I'd easily get away from if this breaks correctly. What are you seeing from Minnesota?
Yeah, I hadn't noticed Noel sitting there, but I'm actually kind of surprised that all that emergent Golden State value didn't just completely wash him off the board. I'm not sure where he was earlier in the day, but I can't really see going to that either in combination with or instead of in massive shares of those Golden State guys that come out triple, quadruple the optimal lineup rate. Just doesn't seem like the right approach there. I would take some shares of Anthony Edwards here. I would take some limited shares of Karl Anthony Towns. I think Towns is a spectacular player. That's one that would go up for me if there's no Jokic. It would just be a matter of distributing some of those shares to Kat, to Vucevic and some of these other guys. But with the idea that Jokic is going to be out there, it limits the amount that I would get to Kat. I think he's fine here. I think he's certainly got upside. The price is definitely fair for a guy that's a 1.3 fantasy point per minute player, put up a 64.2 in 34 minutes the last time out. We've got him projected for 35 minutes. There's no reason in the world he couldn't get back to a 65-point night. It's just not the most probable scenario. So I would be more limited on him than some of these other guys, unless it's in the absence of Jokic, in which case he would jump up for me. Outside of that, nobody really pops up. Another scenario where everybody's just kind of who they are. If I get a few shares of a Jared Vanderbilt for a relatively fair price, he's fine. Probably a little bit more appealing power forward center on the DK slate for 5,300. A little bit more limited at 59 power forward only on the FanDuel slate. Not really,
another team where. This is just another team that I struggle to ever succeed with. Jared Vanderbilt's a guy that I feel like always looks good for me. And I don't think that I've ever gotten the Jared Vanderbilt game that I was looking for. Malik Beasley has been downright dreadful this entire season. I'm happy to get to Towns and Edwards, but I feel like there's 25 other centers every single slate that looks slightly better than Towns. And that's a shame because Towns is a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy. And he just gets lost to it all on a day-to-day basis. I'm assuming the guy that I'm most over the field on is Anthony Edwards. And I'm more than okay with that.
Totally fair. We've all seen the upside through the season. 1.09 for the course of the season. Fantasy points per minute, 1.22 over the last 3 games. So a little bit of a uptick in recent configurations of this lineup. No reason not to like that. And totally with you on Malik Beasley and totally with you on Karl Anthony Towns. Probably my least frequently rostered star player for the caliber of guy that he is versus the times that I get to him, how often he looks good DFS wise. Yeah, he's a guy I just never really get to a good amount of.
9 minutes to go, 2 games to go. Probably took too long to get to this point. We'll go quickly here if we can. Golden State Warriors, 4.5-point dogs in San Antonio because there's no Steph, no Clay, no Porter, no Bielitsa, no Draymond, no Iguodala. I'm probably missing someone else. They've got 9 active bodies today. Poole, Peyton, Looney, Kuminga, Juan Toscano Anderson, Moses Moody, all these guys are 10+% owned. Peyton's 50, Poole's 40+, Looney's 40 on FanDuel. Everything looks good here for all intents and purposes. Damian Lee, probably the guy that I'm least interested in, and he's still viable. Chris Chiozza and Quindary Weatherspoon are probably the 2 guys that I won't play, but I'm going to have a lot of the other 7 here. Do you have anything to actually add for Golden State? Obviously, whoever the starting 5 is for Golden State, we're just going to be playing a bunch.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how I would put it. Don't sweat the ownership. I don't really care. These guys are at value points and minutes projections where it's not really going to matter. They're just foundational to allowing you to build other things into your lineups than a lot of other choices will. And that's what's creating that upside that we talked about, that big uptick in the overall projections. It was like a 30-point difference by building these guys in and creating this value.
I'll be honest, as I look at this, there aren't too many individual groups that I would want to set. It might just be, I don't want more than 2 of Moody, Lee, Chioza, Peyton, or something along those lines. But with 9 guys active, I can kind of see this breaking anyway. And outside of Kevon Looney being like obviously only a 5, every one of these guys is basically like more than one position, so they can slide up and down. I don't think there's a very obvious closing lineup for Golden State either. I would just sort of want to limit the amount of like looking guys to no more than 2.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I would throw into the mix that based on the fact that so many of these guys are minimum priced or thereabouts, that it may not even matter even at that level. Right? Like we don't really care if we're putting a 3,800 and a couple 3,500s together. They don't have to do a lot. I just think that the natural, infrequency with which I'd be getting to Damian Lee and Chioza anyway is probably going to take care of that. So I'm probably not going to spend the time to even build the group. If I saw it popping up all the time, I would probably jump in and eliminate the possibility, but I don't think it's gonna to the point where I would have to worry about it. Everybody else there, I'm totally fine getting to any kind of mix. I mean, you're talking about everybody on that list over 25% optimal lineup rates, most of them over 35, if not 50, 75% boom score probability for Gary Payton, 69% for Jordan Poole on the FanDuel slate, both over the 70 plus range on the DK slate, both more than 50% optimal on DK. Just mash these guys together in a lot of different combinations.
Yeah. If I'm ranking them on FanDuel, I just want to give the people my thoughts here. Poole is number 1. It's not really close. I have my next tier as Gary Payton, Jonathan Kuminga, and Juan Toscano-Anderson. I would say if I had to pick an order there, Payton would be 1, but you could smush them all together. Looney is sort of in his own tier after that, and then Lee and Moody would be grouped to close it all out. They just look great. You got to play a lot of the Warriors today.
Yep, absolutely. And you even get the power forward bonus on Looney over on the FanDuel slate for 4,900.
Even better.
There, so yeah, even more flexibility.
Yeah. So nine guys that are active. I think 7 are going to be moderately owned to in most lineups. And it will be, you're probably seeing at least 3 in cash lineups. On the San Antonio side, it's basically DeJounte Murray and Derek White. Those are the only guys pulling any ownership. They're the only guys in double digits. I don't disagree with it. I have a little bit more interest in Keldon Johnson and Jakob Poeltl on DraftKings than the ownership shows, but it's mostly just Murray and White for me. Do you see anything that stands out for San Antonio?
I wasn't really looking at Jakob Poeltl because he's 8,600 on the FanDuel slate, but yeah, for 72 on DK, there's a little bit more utility there. Only 3.5% optimal, 9.47% boom score. Doesn't really explode off the page, but I wouldn't begrudge anybody, a 10% share of him get a little bit beyond the field. Similar story with Keldon, 57 versus the 61 that FanDuel wants for him. Probably get to a little bit more of them on DraftKings, but yeah, nothing exceptional there for me. It's mostly about the 2 primary guards between DeJounte Murray, who I already talked about earlier, love getting to, will be beyond the field. His optimal rate is beyond the field on the FanDuel slate. It's slightly behind the field on the DK slate. I still think I would extend out beyond the field on Murray on that slate as well here. And similar story for White. I just tend to get to White a little bit less than Murray. I think Murray's the superior player. Everything bears that out, but I'd be fine with getting to more of White than the field is getting to on both sites.
1 game to go, 4 minutes-ish to do it before we turn it over to the NBA Live Before Lock crew. By the way, we did get to 500 likes, so thank you for that, but it seems like 600 or 700 should be next. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We close it out with Brooklyn, 6-point dogs in Phoenix. We do have James Harden for this one. We don't have Kevin Durant or LaMarcus Aldridge. Harden's pulling some ownership, about 20% across both sites. To me, not too crazy. He's a little bit less owned on DraftKings than he should be. He looks better on FanDuel. If you get the shares of Kyrie Irving, I don't think that's all that crazy. Kessler Edwards, probably the best value option you'll find, particularly on FanDuel at 3,900. We're projecting a lot of ownership to Nick Claxton. I don't feel all that comfortable with that. They've got way too many centers, and I think he needs the minutes to get that done. So to me, that's more of a fade. I'm mostly just looking at Harden, Irving, and Edwards.
I will take some additional shots at Nick Claxton, I think, on the FanDuel slate. Given the 26-minute projection we've got on him at 4,100, he looks good enough, and it's one of those spots where I think if I can just slot him in and power forward, if I get that right game out of him, 0.96 fantasy point per minute contributor over the course of the season, down to 0.888 over the last 3 games in only 17 minutes a night. If we give him a little bit of an uptick in minutes, a little bit more to do out there, I don't think it's out of the range of possibilities that he gets me where I need to be in that power forward role. And I just like the ability to roster a $4,100 player in that spot where there's not a lot of other options in that price range at that spot. Kessler Edwards, I think, is moderately interesting. A $3,900 piece at small forward, $4,600, a little bit less compelling on the DK slate, even with the multi-position. Coach was just talking about him, a little bit of coach speak around him, how much he likes him, but not something I'm willing to, really overextend for based on that. I think Harden looks like James Harden on this slate. Fantastic contributor. Field's a little bit behind him on the FanDuel slate. They're further behind him on the DK slate. I think he's very appealing in both spots where you can afford him. I'm happy to get to him. 10-5, probably a little cheap and multi-position on FanDuel. Absolutely fire away with that shooting guard, small forward eligibility.
On the Phoenix side, we might be getting DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder back. They're both now questionable for today, which really complicates matters for some of these guys. I will still happily get to some Chris Paul and to some Devin Booker, although Paul's price might be a little bit too high if we're bringing back a couple more regular starters. I think Booker still looks okay at this point. I'm happy to get to either guy. I just wouldn't be surprised if they dialed Chris Paul's minutes back a little bit. Maybe we see a little bit more point book in this one. Cam Johnson's still getting a little bit of love. I don't necessarily love that if Jay Crowder is in, because his minutes probably go from that like 35, 36 range down to maybe about 30. They got some options after this. I don't like Phoenix nearly as much as I did earlier today, but if you're getting to Booker, if you're getting to Paul, if you're getting to Bridges, honestly, I think he's still likely to play like 36 minutes today. I don't mind any of it. I'm probably not taking any shots on Ayton or Crowder.
Yeah, I agree. And it just negates a lot of what looked good about this team if those guys are back in the lineup. Everything that you just said is totally apt about Cam Johnson. I do agree it would probably shave Chris Paul down. And I wasn't getting to an overload of Chris Paul just based on the pricing and how he lines up with some of the other value pieces at that position. So I think it would knock it down a little bit less. I do like getting to Mikal Bridges in a lot of scenarios. He's a guy that people just don't like to roster and typically is coming out in a good spot. He comes out, double his ownership projection in a lot of cases. So he's got a lot of sneaky value in some situations. Put up a 40.1 FanDuel point performance the other night in 40 minutes. He's a 0.71 fantasy point per minute performer. He needs the time on the court to deliver for you, but he can get you there. And when he's 3.5% owned, 2% owned, I'm totally happy to roster additional shares of him. He makes a lot of things work on some weird lineup combinations. Outside of that, yeah, I think everything, if Ayton plays, everything we said about JaVale McGee, Bismack goes completely out the window in a couple hours this morning in chat were wasted, but what are you going to do? At least hopefully we got the points across.
Anything else you want to touch on before we turn it over to the Live Before Lop crew?
Nah, stick around with those guys. I'm sure there's going to be some more injury news and a lot of clarification coming, so.
Keep your eyes peeled, everybody. Terry, thank you for filling in for Adam. 2,900 people in here, 560 likes. Hit that like button, run it up so they can't get it on the Live Before Lock show. Good luck, everybody. Win some money. We're back again, doing it all again tomorrow morning. But don't go anywhere. Live Before Lock is next.
Greg hit that on the head. Hang on. There's the voice of God. Give it up.
You are now tuned in to NBA Live Before Lock.
Welcome, everybody, to the NBA Live Before Lock show presented by Jock Market, brought in by the voice of Satan, a.k.a. Jordan Klein over there. That is never going to get old. It's like some scary movie intro. I am the keeper kind of crap. But either way, we're presented by Jock Market today. I'm Eric Lindquist. I'm excited to be talking a little NBA action. Fun 7 gamer, a lot of chalk. Oh, I love chalk. And also quack, quack. But I got to introduce my co-host. My guy, Tuesday through Friday, we're usually hanging out here on the show. That's G Ehrenberg DFS on the Twitters. Greg Ehrenberg, how you doing, my dude?
Yeah, man, quack, quack. There's so much going on this late, and I didn't think we'd ever get to a point where we actually have to discuss a chalky Juan Toscano-Anderson. And on top of that, he was named to be in the NBA dunk contest today. This is way more than I could deal with mentally or emotionally. It's a little bit too much going on. But also, this Warriors injury report leads to, if you go to our projected ownership page right now, all of the most chalky players, Golden State Warriors. So on DK today, I'm just going to read these players off in order of most popular on the slate today. Poole, Kuminga, Gary Payton, Damian Lee, Moses Moody, Juan Toscano-Anderson. Those are all of the most popular plays on the slate, all Warriors. Then you get to Spencer Dinwiddie without Bradley Beal. And then it's Looney next. So it's just more Warriors after that. And then it's more of the same on FanDuel. Also, Poole, Payton, Kuminga, Looney, the top 4 most popular plays on FanDuel. It's going to be impossible to ignore Golden State with everybody out today.
All right. Yeah. Is Dinwiddie starting now that Holiday's starting? Yeah, Dinwiddie always starts, so I'm not worried about that. Smash that like button, everybody. Hit the notification bell. You guys want to be watching all of our content, and that's the easiest way to do it. Oh, and subscribe to the channel. We're making that push for 80,000 subs, then 90,000 subs, then 100,000 subs. That's how we do it over here. But the like button goes a very, very long way. And Josh Engleman does such a good job on the early show. I got to keep that going here on the Live Before Lock show. But I would ask you this because this is what I always ask you, but it feels like a dumb question today. Which piece of news is going to shape your lineups the most? So I'm just going to ask you this instead. Who do you think starts for the Golden State Warriors today?
Oh, but by the way, the way more important piece is Nikola Jokic being questionable.
Oh, yeah, totally. But I'm just starting it with this because the center position, we're going to get to that. And obviously, Jeff Green, Zeke Naji, I'm going to play whoever ends up being, kind of the main culprits there. And then you just play a ton of Barton. You play a ton of Monty Morris. I think you just play a ton of chalk Denver because they're going to be lower owned than all of the Golden State pieces. Should be easy because we have Golden State right behind them there. I can't imagine I'm not going to have 4 or 5 lineup spots waiting in the wings with the likes of, James Harden as a spend up option and Golden State pieces everywhere. I'm going to have the salary to fall on those guys, but I'm going to ask the Golden State question first, and then we'll get to it.
Yeah, so I think a lot of these spots are fairly easy, right? Looney's going to start unless we find out if Looney isn't in the starting lineup, he just isn't playing today. I think it was a little curious that he wasn't amongst the list of guys who were ruled out. But for now, assuming that he's in because he wasn't on the injury report, Looney starts. I think that's fairly certain. Jordan Poole starts. That's one that I think we would feel pretty good about. Gary Payton starting. That's one I think we could feel good about. Moses Moody started last game, so I think we could feel good that he's going to start again today. And then I think Kuminga takes the final spot. So as much as there are a bunch of moving parts here for the Warriors, I do feel somewhat confident that Payton, Poole, Moody, Kuminga, the comeback, and Looney are going to be the starters for them.
Yeah, I thought the Moody thing yesterday was preparation of the back-to-back where kind of that 5th starter has been rotated a number of times, and it doesn't really matter because Golden State's really good. They've got guys coming off the bench who can add some ammunition, but now it matters a lot, I think, just kind of whoever that guy ends up being. Maybe Moody continues to start here. He came from not really in the rotation to starting. It was so weird. I thought it was just, hey, we're playing Houston. We don't really need to worry about it. And now here on the back-to-back, it's gotten very dicey. So I think Moody's probably the guy. that I'm the least confident starts, even though he's the guy who started yesterday, as weird as that sounds. Do you kind of agree with that? I guess you probably don't.
So I do think this is, like I said, I'm fairly confident this is what the starting lineup is going to be. The one I feel least confident is Looney, just because he regularly plays. And I don't really understand, like, why are they starting Looney or playing him today when they're holding out all of the regulars? So he's the one I'm least confident in, but I do feel pretty good that Peyton, Poole, Moody, and Kuminga all start.
All right. Well, let's get into it here, guys. As I said, hit that like button. Goes a long way for us. We've got 51 minutes here until lock, and then we've got half hour. We're going to be talking some Jock Market after the show, reacting to some of the games as they're going live, like we always do. Let's get to it, my friend. Back to the Golden State Warriors right at the get-go here. Jordan Poole, Gary Payton II, Damian Lee with his shooting guard, small forward eligibility. I think that makes him an interesting asset over on a site like DraftKings, where you can play him in 5 different spots. Moses Moody there at 3K, the guy that, I have the least confidence in starting, but obviously I think even if he doesn't at 3K, I'm assuming he's in the rotation. I'm assuming he's going to play a lot of minutes. So hard not to like all of these guys. Rank them for me, please.
Yeah. So talking about the guards, I'll ask you one question. How much do you read into the rotation for the Warriors the last time we saw the situation and they had a bunch of guys out?
Well, I mean, I was going back to last year too, because we saw so many games with a condensed Warriors rotation where the likes of Jordan Poole, less Gary Payton II in some of those minutes, but we've seen some strong fantasy point per minute rates for him in limited sample size in the course of the last year and a half. Now, of course, there was a time end of last year where he was randomly showing up in some sample size, but 1.28 DraftKings points per minute is Gary Payton II in the absence of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins. Again, that's a 100-minute sample size, 97 total minutes that we're looking at there. But I feel fairly confident that as much as I do love Jordan Poole, he is pulling by far the most ownership. I think he's impossible to get away from. I really like him. I'm going to play him near 100% of my lineups, I think, on DK, but somebody I like even more, and I think is impossible not to play in 100% so long as he's starting, is Gary Payton II in this spot. He's cheaper. He fits in so many spots. I find him impossible to get away from, even more than Jordan Poole, who's even projected for over 40, and probably rightfully so. But Gary Payton II, there's just nobody in his price range that comes close to projecting out as well as he does for me.
Yeah, and so I'm just going to put this out on the table. I'm getting to a ton of Payton and Poole. They're my 2 favorite plays on the slate. Here is my one reservation. We've seen the situation with the Warriors. What was it, about a month ago? They played against the Pelicans. Curry was out. Thompson was out. Draymond was out. They rested pretty much everybody. They started Gary Payton. Do you remember how many minutes Payton played in that game?
Like 19 or something?
14. He
okay.
started, he played 14 minutes, and they just went with a really spread rotation. They played, Moody played 23 minutes. Chioza played minutes off the bench. Looney started and played 20 minutes. Lee played 30 minutes. They also had some other guys in the mix. They had Iguodala was active then. So they did have more bodies to go to, but they played a really spread out rotation. That's my only fear for today, is that we see something similar where they're just like, we're going to go flat minutes and kind of treat it as a rest game for everybody. I'm not projecting it that way. It is one fear for me. But other than that, I have Jordan Poole as my favorite. Gary Payton II is my favorite right now.
Yeah, I mean, devil's advocate to that. It was on a back-to-back. It was an interesting spot. I think he got dinged up in that game too, from what I remember. So
nope.
Wasn't that the same time where he played 14?
No. That was he got dinged up in a game he started and played 5 minutes about a week
later.
Oh,
that's what it was. Okay. I just was double checking because I went through a lot of that. Obviously, they're the most important team to talk about on this slate. We're talking about them right from the get-go, and it just so happens there's 4 pieces of really good value, all at the guard position. I think you should have lots of them. Damian Lee is kind of an interesting talking point because he can play that small forward position. That opens up his flexibility to go to shooting guard, small forward, guard, forward, utility. Again, 5 positions. That's fascinating to me because I think he might show up in more lineups than he maybe should. He's probably the piece of value that I'm the lowest on out of those 4. If Moody's starting, I really like him. Gary Payton II, Jordan Poole, I think are impossible to get away from in any circumstance for me, starting or not. I expect them both to, but regardless, I'm going to play them. What do you think about Damian Lee here on this slate, considering I believe in his sample size in the same situation, he's got one of the lower fantasy point per minute rates here. Let me find him. I don't know where he just went because it's low. He was right around 0.71 over the course of the last year with the absence of Steph, Klay, and Wiggins on the floor.
Yeah, so I am assuming that he comes off the bench, which it just makes it hard to project him for as many minutes as the starters. And even though what I said last game, my one concern I have is that how they ran the rotation the last game, all these players sat. It's a concern, but it's not something that I'm allowing to dictate how I approach these Warriors players in my lineups today. So I like Damian Lee as a somewhat lower owned value play, but he's in 20% of my lineups right now. And I do much prefer getting to Gary Payton, who I think starts, Jordan Poole, Moses Moody. We'll talk about Kuminga, who has the same nickname as my mom. We're going to talk about him later. So there's a lot of value plays. I prefer what? What happened?
It's not very nice.
No, that's what the neighbors called. They're this big. Yeah, no, just this. No, I mean, just like three of them. No, not all of them. They were all big guys, like really, like staggeringly. Like one of them definitely played football.
They bought you alcohol when you were 16.
Big. Yeah. He used to. You know what's funny? He used to ask me to get a beer for him when he would come over. He would be upstairs doing some work in the attic. I'd hear like a bunch of hammering, and then he'd ask me to get him a beer. He used to call my mom the same thing as Kuminga.
He used to ask him, what's the Goodwill Hunting quote? I used to ask him.
He was a good guy, though. I liked him.
The belt or the whatever. Oh, but why'd you tell him that one? Because fuck him, right? That's the Goodwill Hunting quote.
He used to give me candy.
God, let's talk Spencer Dinwiddie and not cum bucket and whatever else you're saying. We're looking at Spencer Dinwiddie here. No Bradley Beal. That seems pretty important to talk about here on this slate. Spencer Dinwiddie. We have so much value at guard, so much value. So there is opportunity cost to rostering a 6,300 over on FanDuel Spencer Dinwiddie. So it needs to be known there. At 5,900 on DraftKings, I like that quite a bit. I think I'm going to get to a little bit more of them there. I'm playing 20 lineups on FanDuel just for everybody's entertainment, playing a lot more over on DK today. But Spencer Dinwiddie, how do you view him on this slate?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to not like Spencer Dinwiddie. There's because whenever you take Bradley Beal off the court for the Wizards, we've seen this a handful of times this year, and a couple of things happen. Number one, Dinwiddie, much better production when you're taking Beal off the court. But then the second thing also, there's more minutes to go to Dinwiddie, and they've been fairly conservative with Dinwiddie's minutes coming back from the ACL injury, but those minutes become much less restrictive when Bradley Beal's out. So I don't like him nearly as much as the Warriors chalk plays, but at the same time, Spencer Dinwiddie is somebody who's really, really difficult for me to get away from.
Yeah, difficult to get away from in any capacity. 20% on FanDuel, that seems a little bit low for me. Where again, looking at the Warriors pieces, everybody looks fantastic over there. Poole's 5,300. It's a joke. He's somehow cheaper on FanDuel than what he is over on the DraftKings slate. Useful. Gary Payton, 3,800. Kuminga. I don't even know what we're supposed to say. Play a lot of Warriors, but put Dinwiddie into the pool. He's going to kind of get mixed in. I don't think he's going to come out in the wash over on DraftKings any lower than about 35% of my lineups. That's what he was earlier. I don't see that changing regardless of any starting lineup, but obviously some swappability I want to have in play for Denver, depending on the timing of that news. So we're going to be sitting around talking a little bit Pelicans, Detroit, as we get closer to lock of that game. Only game locking at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But then Washington, we're looking at Denver. We're looking at Golden State. Those are all going to be decent enough targets there. Aaron Holiday, I saw a question. I am not even going to answer that because that's not going to happen today on this slate. Let's talk some expensive spend ups because we have so much value, very stars and scrubsy. So therefore, we should be looking to spend up. Again, a lot of the value is at guard, but I still want to get to shares of James Harden above 17.7%. DeJounte Murray in that Golden State game, I think becomes a little bit of an asset because if that game shoots out, you definitely want DeJounte Murray or Derek White along for the ride. Chris Paul or Devin Booker seem to go for 60. One of them does every single night on every single slate. Now they get an up-pace Brooklyn spot where they're projected in a game with a 230 total, which is way higher for Phoenix. Lots of options at the top end. Tell me who you like the most at guard.
Yeah, so the Warriors guys being the obvious ones. Once we get past them, once we get past Dinwiddie, I think that we're seeing Anthony Edwards get slept on a little bit in this spot. I understand that he's $8,600 over on FanDuel. He's $8,500 over on DK, but we kind of have an unlimited amount of value to play with on this slate, given what's happening with the Warriors. And raw points matter a lot more on the high end than just the points per dollar production. And I think the upside for Anthony Edwards is really significant with D'Angelo Russell out of the lineup because for most of the year, we really only see three players shoot the ball for the Timberwolves: Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, Karl-Anthony Towns. we're not taking D'Lo out of the picture because of his shin injury. And I think there's a lot more shots that are going to get filtered towards Edwards and Towns. And there's a lot of upside there the field just isn't quite on. So Edwards is a little bit more of a contrarian spend up option to mix in with those Warriors value plays is somebody who I like getting to.
I love that call. I love that shout out. It's a guy that in high 30-ish minutes, I mean, we're still sitting around waiting for some of the Timberwolves news, but I'm with you. I think that he definitely makes some sense on this slate. It's just a high upside dude, sub 15%, checks a lot of boxes. We just got some massive news here. Brandon Ingram available to play Tuesday. That really just kind of writes off everything in this early game for me. I don't even know, outside of Jonas Valanciunas 7,400 on FanDuel, there's a single share of anybody that I really want to get to the early game. Thought Cade Cunningham was a high upside option before you got Grant Olynyk and everybody back in the fray there. So Brandon Ingram ruled in. Anything whatsoever for you from the Pellies now?
Ingram, particularly on FanDuel.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the right answer.
So we don't know if he has any kind of minutes restriction yet, which I'm still looking for. We just got a message from News God in the chat. Let's see if that addresses that. So do you expect we're going to see a full workload from Brandon Ingram now?
God, it's so hard to know. I'm hoping we get some kind of word for it. This is an ankle injury, so lower body. Obviously, it's a FanDuel specific question. 8,400 on DK. You didn't have to think about it at any point, and obviously that's where I'm playing a little bit more today. 7,900. I think you can probably get to a little bit. I'm going to put him at 30 minutes. I don't really know if I want. We have him at 31. I think that's about perfect. So yeah, 31 minutes. I'm going to get to a little bit, but he's not going to be some large stand I take, especially with news yet to come.
Yeah, so he is, let's see, how many games off did he have? He hasn't played since January 20th, a week and a half. It's not that much time off. We don't know how significant the ankle sprain is. The Pelicans are going nowhere. The team sucks. They don't have Zion. So it's reasonable to think they wouldn't bring Ingram back unless he's fully healthy. So I think that 31 minutes is probably pretty reasonable. I don't think he's going to be super limited, but I also don't think we're going to go out and see him play his regular, 34 to 36 minutes. On FanDuel, especially considering he's projected for 1% ownership at 7,900, I would like to have more than 1% of them.
I agree with that. 100% wholehearted. 8,400, probably not going to touch it over on DK. If it burns me, it burns me, but so many guys that I would prefer to get to than a 30 minutes of Brandon Ingram. And I am the biggest Brandon Ingram stan on planet Earth. Oh, on cue, Patrick Beverley available to play. That's kind of interesting. We'll get to that here in a second at the guard spot. Couple of super chats to get caught up on, Greg. Robert Holman, would you consider setting a group with Peyton as the key player, and in lineups without him, you would boost Lee's projection? I'm personally setting 0 groups, 0 for Golden State because of how cheap they are.
I don't mind that thought process, though.
I get it.
Yeah. So, I think that for today's slate, considering how cheap these Warriors guys are, like you just said, you're going to run lineups. You're going to get to a bunch of them, and it's not problematic at all. So I'm not setting any kind of specific rules. I'm just getting to a whole bunch of Warriors players. Sometimes it's Damian Lee. Sometimes it's, Jordan Poole, Moses Moody pop up in some of those lineups. Peyton and Poole being my 2 favorite overall on the slate. But I don't think that just because you have one, you can't have the other. Or if you don't have one, you have to have the other. I just view Damian Lee as another guy who's a pretty good value play, but just not quite as good of a value play as the guys I expect to start.
Totally. And that's where I'm at too. I also think because he can play 5 positions, he might show up in more lineups. We have him at 32.5%. I'm not going to get close to that on DK. I'm going to probably be half of that and be just fine with it. Therefore, I don't have to set that group, but totally get where you're coming from with that. If I had more Damian Lee, I'd probably set something similar. So love that question. Love the process there. No doubt about it. Little hard nut. Last spot on FanDuel, Giannis or Harden for you, Greg?
Giannis for today.
Same. Justin Alperto, and we'll talk more about Giannis when we get there. Is it Kuzma season today, he asks?
Yes. So once again, though, the way this slate shakes out, I think there's a lot of upside in Kyle Kuzma, and mea culpa. I have to apologize to Kyle Kuzma and all his dumb outfits and his handbags and his gigantic sweaters as well, because I was not really buying into Kyle Kuzma early in the year, and I should have. He's been outstanding this year. And now we're going to see more usage and more minutes going to him with Bradley Beal off the court. So I do have a chunk of Kyle Kuzma lineups. It's just not a crazy amount as I thought I would have had earlier in the day because of this Warriors news. it's just really much a stars and scrubs lineup. So stars and scrubs night for me. I prefer Spencer Dinwiddie to Kyle Kuzma in terms of where I'm getting my Wizards exposure, but this isn't a slate where I'm going to advocate for fading Kyle Kuzma like I have in the past. He's priced down a little bit, and he's just been really good over the last couple months.
All right. And I'm with you. Kyle Kuzma was one of my favorite guys on the NBA slate starter last night, talking with Ryan, and I just couldn't believe I was saying those words to think of how much the tune has changed on a Kyle Kuzma, but the results speak for themselves, as does the rebound rate. I think as Rui Hachimura, Thomas Bryant get adjusted, maybe the rebounds come down a little bit, but he has just been rebounding at such a consistently high clip that it's just so hard to get away from some of his upside in spots. So I'm going to still get to, mid-teens % of him over on TK at 7,400. Just find it hard to get away from. CS, $1.99. Nice shirt, Eric. Oh, from the guy who called me flamboyant yesterday. I see everything. Don't try to get it by me. And GTA min price. Dare we? Oh, trust me, my friend. Greg Ehrenberg and I are going to get to Juan Toscano Anderson today.
Yeah. And I have some issues with Juan Toscano. My own personal biases aside about JTA. I don't think he's going to start today, which makes it hard for me to project him crazy well compared to the other Warriors starters, or the guys at least I think are going to start. So he's in my player pool. I'm underweight to the field on him though. And I know there's been spots where the one time in particular where I played him, it went very, very poorly. Everybody's well aware of that. But I honestly don't, I think he's going over on today. We currently have him projected for over 30% ownership on FanDuel. Right now on DraftKings, he's projected for 25% ownership with only center eligibility. There's a lot of value to get to on the Warriors, and I just like the other guys more than Juan Toscano Anderson. So I'm currently underweight to him. That'll change if he ends up starting. But as of right now, I wish I had a hot take. I could come on and just be like, hey, Juan Toscano Anderson, we're doing this, and I could make jokes and bits about it or whatever. But I just think he kind of looks okay, and I'm a little bit underweight to the field on him.
Oh my God, GTA. It's never not going to be funny, though. It's never not going to be funny. I will say completely different plays for me on completely different sites. 3,500, the floor over on FanDuel as well here. No doubt about it. Yep, I'm going to bring that up here too. Thank you, Loco, for always keeping me updated on everything constantly here. We'll get to Jackson Hayes because even against Detroit here, once again, going to be starting for a second consecutive day. So maybe everything I said about New Orleans, not nearly as applicable. Hey, check that out. Jordan Klein pulling up the NBA projections, which are free today. I would take advantage of that because with so much value, so much news here, going to be very valuable to you. NHL projections also free. Oh, I got drilled. It just completely killed in the streets yesterday. And PGA rankings. We're going to be talking some Pebble Beach here. Talked about it a little bit today with my friend Ben Raza, as Jason Roslin kind of recoups and everything, feels a little bit better. I'm going to be doing live before lock as well. So 2 shows for the price of 1. Looking forward to doing that tomorrow. Got news at the guard position, said we would revisit it, and we got the other pieces of news we needed. D'Angelo Russell ruled out. Josh Okogie ruled out. Patrick Beverley will play. I will say, Patrick Beverley is a guy that I've kind of been looking forward to being able to pull a trigger on, and I don't know what the minutes are going to look like. And I know guard is absolutely stacked, no doubt about it, but he is 4,900 over on the DraftKings slate, and over on the FanDuel slate, he is something pretty similar 56. As well. 50. Oh, no, not similar at all. DraftKings, any interest on a low-owned, I'm assuming low-owned Patrick Beverley?
Not really. It's like, because I have so many Warriors guys projected better than him that are also significantly cheaper. Patrick Beverley, I think he's going to have somewhat of a minutes restriction. I'm projected for mid-20s fantasy points. So why do I want to pay 4,900 for Patrick Beverley when I could play, Moses Moody, who I've projected for basically the same amount of fantasy points, but he costs $1,900 less. It's hard for me to get to Beverley. If we find out he's going to play, 34 minutes, I would feel differently. I don't think that's going to be the case, though.
Miami Mike 305. Long time no see.
Hello, Eric. You have spared your life.
The worst bit on this show.
Shut up, Greg. Your mom is the cum bucket. That's how it works. I'm really hungry. I can't wait to eat a sandwich after this show.
Right, I didn't understand a thing you just said.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think Chat did. Chat did. And Jordan Klein. I got a laugh out of Jordan Klein. Let me tell you guys, with producer Cam, you guys know how much that matters to me. That matters a lot. It should matter to everybody. He's got the laugh that volts the sun. It's the laugh of 1,000 suns. I think I want to call it that. That's poetic and beautiful. Jordan Klein, the laugh of 1,000 suns. Anything?
What just happened? I have no
Awesemo
clue.
Plus tools and content for $29.95 for the weekly pass is currently what you guys need. Full access to premium content, including player projections, which are free today, ownership projections, boom bust tool, lineup builder, and so much more. If you just want to play NBA DFS, I'm telling you, $4.95, pretty cheap, pretty good package to start off with. But if you want everything behind the paywall, including NFL, everything else, $29.95 doesn't get better than that. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. How is that? Better? Better.
All right, no, I understood that.
That's great. Let's go to the forward position here, and let's start with, I don't even want to say his name anymore. Your mom knows, but Jonathan Kuminga on this slate, 60+% over on DK, 4K. We're all assuming he starts. He's a 0.93 fantasy point per minute player on the season. He got in the starting unit, for 2 hot seconds, was playing some outrageous basketball in some of these blowouts, just completely put up some fantasy, some slate winning performances. But now at 60%, do you want more or less than the field on DraftKings?
Somewhere around the field. It looks like I'm going to be with him right now. He's a really good value play. I expect he's going to start. If we ultimately find out that Juan Toscano-Anderson starts instead of Kuminga, which is a possibility, then I will be lower on Kuminga and be a little bit higher on Juan Toscano-Anderson. But I mean, we've seen Kuminga start a few times this year, mixed, like very, very mixed results. So these are the starts we've seen from Kuminga this year: 33 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points, 29 fantasy points, 15 fantasy points, all over the place. But a lot of those games, also the Warriors had the regular starters, and he's somebody who's not afraid to shoot. I think he's going to carry a fairly significant usage rate. We've seen him with a 24% usage rate for the season, but also, like I said, keep in mind, that's been with guys like Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins on the court. So I think this should be a pretty significant usage game for Jonathan Kuminga. If I look at the Warriors lineup, there's really only 2 players that I could expect are going to carry massive usage rates or high usage rates in the starting lineup. One being the obvious Jordan Poole. Number 2 is Kuminga.
Jokic in.
Cool. That's how my lineup's set up.
Cool. Me too. Thank God. I did not want to have to deal with all of that, because let me tell you, the things that would change would be uncomfortable. So when you had asked me that question before, I wasn't even prepared to answer what I would do, because I just didn't want to have to deal with it. Plus, people don't want to watch me get spastic. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. Wouldn't be enjoyable for me. I'll tell you that much. Let's keep going down the forward position. So Kuminga, I have the exact same feel as you do on that one. I don't really want to go, near lock button. I got to find some points of differentiation. I'm just fine being at about the field on Jonathan Kuminga, not having him make or break my slate. But then Damian Lee, I'm a little bit lower than. We talked about him at length. Kyle Kuzma, we already touched on that one as well. I think we're both kind of in agreement that he's all right, but not as good as what he would have looked had not all of this Warriors value existed. Wendell Carter Jr., the next kind of talking point here, 6,200. We've seen that tag kind of trail off from, a mid 7s to now 6,200. I understand there's a lot of pieces around him now that can eat up some usage, and maybe that's not necessarily there. But for a guy who's routinely been a double machine at times here, the rebounds have constantly been there. I mean, he went through a streak where, he just was never getting less than 10 boards. And I feel like the double opportunity here, exact same as it was before. 6,200 Wendell Carter Jr. on DraftKings, more or less than 21%.
I have a little bit more on Wendell Carter Jr. right now. He's not in my highest projected lineup or anything like that, but price, we've seen it come down pretty substantially from where it was at not all that long ago. We go back to a week ago and he was 7,600. The reason it's come down a little bit is he was coming back from injury. He was playing restricted minutes. Not the case anymore. Last game, we saw 33 minutes, 37 fantasy points for Wendell Carter Jr. And we kind of get these crossroads situations in DFS and the pricing sometimes where we start to see players come back from an injury or whatever it may be. They're restricted. The minutes are down. And then the minutes start to come up and there's just a convergence point where they're back to full strength while their price has kind of reached a bottom. That's where we're at with Wendell Carter Jr. right now. So if this was a slate where there wasn't just all this crazy amount of value, he'd probably be somebody who's in like 60, 70% of my lineups. It's not that much because we have so much value here overall in the slate. But in terms of mid-range plays, Spencer Dinwiddie and Wendell Carter Jr., those are my 2 favorite, like 6K-ish range guys today.
I love that call. I think both of them make the most sense to me as well in that range. No doubt about it. We'll talk about some of the high-priced guys. I live to spaz. Maybe. I don't know. Then also, no disrespect, but Eric is weird at times. He gets way off topic. If you think this is me getting off topic today. Don't watch any other streams, but I would recommend hanging around because I think I've been manning the ship a little bit more straightforward of late, but maybe
I feel like I've gotten more off track than you have today.
I was going to say, how am I getting blamed for this today? You brought your mom into this at the very get-go.
Oh, how dare you talk about my mom? How dare you?
How dare you, Greta Thunberg or Greta Thunberg?
You're not allowed to talk that. I do not appreciate people bringing up my mom.
Well, the rest of the forward spot, it like falls off a cliff in terms of ownership. And that's where I just really want to be spending up for Giannis. He ends up, I guess we got to talk the main spend ups. I think I usually ask that when we get to center and Jokic is there. But considering he just got ruled in, I think it's a good time to ask you now. We've got Giannis, we've got James Harden, we've got Nikola Jokic. One at guard, one at forward, one at center. Rank them for me.
Yeah, so this is fairly clear for me. Jokic 1, Giannis 2, Harden 3. And I don't even really have to put a second thought into it. It's a toe injury for Jokic. He's a lot tougher than somebody like Jimmy Butler. Jokic, toe injury, nothing. So I think Jokic, we just see him go out full minutes, no issues. And against a Timberwolves team that's, whatever, they're missing D'Angelo Russell. It's not going to make a big difference for their defense. But it's really hard to not project Nikola Jokic to be the highest scoring player on this slate. And then you just consider all the value we have. You don't need some 70 fantasy point game from Jokic today to end up being the nuts. You just need him to outscore the other top price players, which is what I project to happen. Jokic is the pretty clear top spend up option for me. Giannis being number 2, and I have plenty of lineups where I could fit both of them in pretty comfortably.
Yeah, and if you tried to fit all 3 of the studs in, you're lying because you have 2,900 left over. You can't do it on DraftKings. So I'm looking at prioritizing the exact same way. I don't know how you get away from Jokic and his raw point. His floor could be optimal on this kind of a slate. Now, there are some ceilings in Cat, Nikola Vucevic, stuff like that. And Nikola Jokic has had some floor games, but most of those have been in account of blowout or foul, like massive foul trouble. And he's put up no less than 54 fantasy points his last 10. We're looking at a spot where I can't not prioritize a guy averaging north of 1.8 fantasy points per minute here on this slate against the Timberwolves. Just not going to happen. Giannis 2, Washington without Bradley Beal. I do get a little worried about that, but I never factor in blowout. 120 total as well. If they do blow him out, Giannis probably a good reason why. James Harden, surprising to see him be I believe he's the most popular out of all 3. And that's weird to me considering all the guard value we have.
That's going to change now that Jokic was ruled in.
Okay, that's probably true. Ryan Nelson 02, Eric's professionalism is unquestionable. I don't know.
It's no, I'd say of the who's the most professional of the people we work with?
Laffy. Laffy's by the book. No, Jordan Klein with the head shake.
No,
I'm gonna tell Laffy
it would have to be somebody. It would have to be somebody who's more regularly sober during the shows. So you're up there. It's. I think you're near the top. Laffy is certainly professional. Adam less so. Josh Engleman. Josh is pretty professional. Who else? I think Ben Ross.
I am not responsible for today's show getting derailed. I just want everybody to know that right from the get. Oh, who? Ben's professional, but Ben has that dry sarcasm that just lands every time. And I feel like Neil is like, by the book, I'm going to give you the greatest information there ever was. And by the way, I make hundreds of thousands of dollars with this little baby DFS thing. Yeah, I
think Neil is a good pick for most professional, but I assume he doesn't do basketball shows, and I kind of feel like this was basketball related. But Neil's a good answer.
Yeah, Rinpack might be the other
chalk
guy. Rinpack, chalk answer.
Oh yeah, that's probably true. I think Neil's the chalk here. We could put Rinpack in as number 1 for NBA in terms of professionalism.
Matt Kajewski. You guys haven't seen many Matt Kajewski. Yeah, the guy's professional, but I have to say, most underrated humor at Awesemo.com, Matt Kajewski, and I don't think it's routinely close. The guy has lived a different life than you, than me, than anybody else.
He lives off nothing but tuna fish.
And Four Loko. And is awaiting getting buzzed for a Cooper Cup take. Tased, I believe is the right word. Tased because of a Cooper Cup take.
Actually, you know what? Because somebody just brought it up. Terry.
Yeah, it's probably Terry. But Terry is so knowledgeable about movies.
Cuban
and such.
Terry.
At least he can go on. Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cuban Terry. Like, it's a very specific character,
Jesus.
but I think that's the most professional person we work with. Emac
Greg has offended Terry. He's offended Luffy. He's offended his mom. He is about to build Mount Rushmore of offensiveness.
Wait, how did I offend my mom?
Back to forward we go, guys. Back to forward. There's Franz Wagner, who's kind of an interesting guy at 10%. I think you're going to see some massive upside games still from him, even with Suggs, even with some of those guys back. But is 40 plus still going to be like, you need 40 plus? Anything less, you're probably in deep trouble, even at the 5,600 tag. Chris Middleton is somebody I was thinking I was going to get to more of. I'm just not going to get to him here on this slate anymore. It's 2-starsy and scrubsy for me. I mean, we just have such concentrated ownership, and I think rightfully so with the likes of Kuminga, Lee less on, but Anthony Edwards, I'm over. I think this mid-range of guys, Jimmy Butler, Anthony Edwards, these 8,500 to 9,500 type dudes are just showing up in a lot of my lineups. Anything else you really want to touch on here at the forward spot?
So as for other forwards, we've talked about Kuzma. I think that still, once again, he's somebody worth getting to. A little more so for me on FanDuel than DK. DK, where he's 7,400, and we only have to roster one power forward. He only is power forward eligible. I still think he's somebody who, once again, is worth playing, but I'm not that much different than the field on. Jimmy Butler, who I like to give a hard time to because it seems to rile people up. Once again, I think he's a pretty good option today. We have an unlimited amount of players to pay up for, and he hasn't been all that consistent over the last month or so, and he's been out of the lineups with, various debilitating toe injuries, but the upside is really significant. I know the last game went to 1 million overtimes, scored over 80 fantasy points, but still look at some of the other games he had. A game against the Clippers the day before, he scored 54 fantasy points. He had a dud against the Knicks before that, but in the game before that against the Lakers, he put up over 60 fantasy points. So I don't think the mean projection for Jimmy Butler looks particularly good, but the upside is certainly there.
All right, we got the Pistons starting lineup too while we were going on our absolute I don't even know. Cunningham, Joseph, Bay, Grant, Stewart. I'm just not going to play a single Piston today.
Let's see. Do I have exposure to any Pistons? Not really. I don't think it's a team that we need to be rostering. There's a lot of other spots to go to. If you get to some shares of Cade Cunningham, that's never problematic because he's really, really good as a fantasy producer, and then not to get sidelined too much. But I also think, because I bet Evan Mobley for rookie there before I think this is a good time to hedge some of those and start to get some action on Cade Cunningham for rookie there, something I did this morning. That aside, though, for today, like if you have the salary available, it's okay to play Cade Cunningham, but low priority.
Loco, $2. Greg, please tell us more about this Kuminga story. Bad Loco. No, we can't do that because, God, if we go on that tangent again, oh, it's uncomfortable. It's hot in here. Michael Pazzulli. Hello, gentlemen. Hello. Looney, Portis, or Hayes Kuzma on FanDuel. I think we can talk a little bit about our friend Jackson Hayes here now, where he's power forward eligible over on FanDuel. He's 3,600 now starting again. That's legitimately going to be the only guy that I think I get to from the Pelicans. Oh, I'll have a little bit of Brandon Ingram still on the FanDuel slate out of my 20, but might have a couple shares of Jackson Hayes. Does he change at all for you now that we're going to get a back-to-back start coming off of 35 fantasy points yesterday?
I don't think so.
I still don't legitimately love it. I think I like the Looney Portis side more. I mean, Portis is now 6K on FanDuel, and I'm going to just keep going down with that ship constantly. I don't really know what else to do. I'm pot committed.
So I don't want to chase Jackson Hayes, especially because Brandon Ingram is back. I think that has to hurt his playing time a little bit here. I know they've been so weird with how they handled the Jackson Hayes and Willie Hernan-Gomez situation where, oftentimes this year when we see Jonas Valanciunas out, they start Willie Hernan-Gomez and Jackson Hayes takes on the same role. But then you get Valanciunas back and just Jackson Hayes plays the backup center minutes. Now it's really weird because they're both starting in the front court, but now we also have Brandon Ingram in the mix. But the real thing that sticks out to me about Michael Pazzulli's question here is that Looney is by far my favorite points per dollar play of anybody that he's brought up in that mix. The only way this changes for me is if Looney doesn't start, then we'd have to change how we look at him and the Warriors. But for now, it's the Looney and Portis combo.
Emac just called your mom hot, so that's a thing that happened today.
Oh, he was one of the guys who used to come over.
Jake Nunley, $2 super chat. Harden, Jackson Hayes, or D. Murray and Claxton on FanDuel? I didn't remotely think about Claxton one time today, but I get it. I like
Claxton today.
I just don't know what that's like. How many minutes he started last time out? He's going to start ramping up minutes, I would think.
But Aldridge is out, and Aldridge played last game.
But Day'Ron Sharpe exists, and Blake Griffin ended up playing minutes, and I don't know. 22 minutes of Nicholas Claxton. He's 4,100 over on DK. On FanDuel, Claxton is. I didn't even think about this. He's 7%. I'm still not going to do it.
Yeah, so I'm overweight to the field on Nick Claxton.
Interesting.
The last time that Aldridge was out, Claxton was out for that game too. Let's see. When was the last time that Claxton started with Aldridge out? I'm trying to find that game.
Oh man.
So you just have no interest at all for you for Claxton?
None. I don't think getting 20 minutes of Nicholas Claxton, which is definitely on the table, is viable on this slate for me.
The last time that Aldridge was out and Claxton was playing, Claxton played 33 and a half minutes.
But that's a completely different circumstance, him coming off of being out forever. And now, you have a guy in Day'Ron Sharpe who I think could.
Sharpe was the backup. Sharpe was also the backup center that game, and he played minutes though. Okay. And it's not like he was out for that long, Claxton. So Claxton came back. He played 17 minutes. Then he rested
for 2 weeks.
But he's played in multiple games since then.
He's played 2, and he's played 17 in both of them.
But Aldridge was in for those games.
It's true. Okay. 4,100 on DK. I'm going to have legitimately 0%. He's not even in the pool for me. I get it. Again, I didn't know what to do with Aldridge out because they just seem like they're going to play a lot of these different bodies. Whereas Golden State, you get cheaper guys. Yes, Juan Toscano Anderson, even your favorite. Those are things you can do. But I definitely am more inclined to say no. But maybe on FanDuel where you can at least play him. He's not power forward over on DK, right? Yeah, he's just center. So there's no chance there. On FanDuel, maybe a little bit of interest just in regards to if you think those minutes exist there for him. 4,100 is a lot different.
And also, I'll say my highest projected lineup on FanDuel today does have Nick Claxton in it. Not on DK, but FanDuel does.
That is crazy. You are crazy, but I love you. You're also very good at DFS, so maybe I'm going to listen to you a little bit more here. I have some super chats. We're going to fly. Darren Unger, FanDuel, Joker Hayes, and don't put that word in there. Don't put that word in there. Joker Hayes and you know who, or G Val Kuzma and Looney.
All right. So Joker Hayes, Kuminga, J Val Kuzma. That's joke. It's the first combination. Jokic, Jackson Hayes, and Kuminga. But with that said, what is the price on Jackson Hayes on FanDuel?
3,600. I'm definitely going to play some.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Yeah, that's it for me. It's the first combination. There's nobody else I would switch to either.
Yeah, I like Jackson Hayes quite a bit on FanDuel. I think he's going to be popular on FanDuel now too. Let me refresh it. Let me see. Oh yeah, 28.5%. That seems popular. But 3,600. That's pretty reasonable. Darren Unger, just read that one. JR 499. Thank you so much, my dude. Noel and Looney were Toscano Anderson and Devontae Graham last 2 slots. FanDuel cash. If you play Noel in FanDuel cash, you're in a lot of trouble. Don't do it.
Yeah, and I think points per dollar. He doesn't even look that bad today. There's just better options to get to is what it comes to. So I wouldn't play Noel in cash today.
Also, but would you play Devontae Graham? I wouldn't play Devontae Graham in cash. Like not a chance in God's green earth. 5,400. No.
No, it's not necessary today.
Yep, not necessary. Orion, $1.99. Realistically, is 4 Warriors too much for a FanDuel GPP? Not in the slightest.
Nope.
Cool. We caught up on the super chats. You guys are the absolute best. You know what else is the best? Signing up at Jock Market right now because they've turned fantasy sports into the stock exchange and they're giving you lots of ability to make money right now using promo code Awesemo. $50 deposit bonus on your first deposit plus first market guarantee. So if you play NBA after the show with Greg and I, you're going to want to stick around anyway because starting lineups, a lot of things are going to be changing for our lineups here as we get closer to that lock. But we're going to be talking Jock Market because you can definitely make some really good money immediately every single second of the game. So go over there right now with 12 minutes left to go. Participate in the pregame IPO phase where you buy shares of players, you trade, you sell them, you do whatever else after the fact, but you get those shares first. You'll get them at a little bit of a discount. Your favorite players for DFS, or if there's somebody that you're not getting into DFS, but is maybe going a little undervalued, you can definitely take advantage of buying those shares of players. Use our free Jock Market projections in order to do that too. At Awesemo, go to the NBA tab, go to the bottom. You'll see Jock Market there at the very bottom, all set to go. Free projections for you every single day. So use that to make some serious money. Oh my God, green check mark. That's fantastic. I'm getting trolled by a guy named Green Checkmark. I love that. I love that journey for me. But Jock Market is where you definitely need to be playing after the show here with us. Yeah, and that first market guarantee goes a long way. So if you play NBA with us after the show, they'll refund your money up to $100 instantly. Up to $100, anything you lose, completely refunded when you check out their sites. You really have nothing to lose at all by checking out Jock Market. Go download it over on the app. They have NFL as well, so Super Bowl stuff coming up soon. NHL every day, PGA, which is so much fun over on Jock Market as well. You definitely want to hop in the pregame IPO phase because somebody shoots a low number, they become expensive for the rest of the week, and you can definitely make some profit selling at high points during the course of the week. So definitely check that out. That is Jock Market. Excited to talk their product after the show. And thank you so much to them for their sponsorship so many times of these Tuesday shows on the NBA Live Before Lock show. Smash that like button too as we're going here. We got 10 minutes left to go. We're going to cover the center position as well as these super chats. Jordan Klein doing a great job of keeping me updated here. Rob Sorensen, $4.99. I'm new at this. Please be kind. Is Hachimura sneaky unowned value if he gets a little more run to replace some of Beal's scoring? I think on a different slate, I would maybe have some interest, but because of how good the Warriors value is, I don't think it's necessary. Tell me if I'm wrong, Greg.
I like the thought process, just not for today. Yep. It's really hard to see, even if Hachimura comes out and plays, bigger, let's say they give him 26 minutes and they really try to ramp him up a little bit. It's still hard to see him outperforming a lot of those Warriors guys. We haven't seen those minutes from Hachimura yet. So I don't think the upside is worth the risk, nor do I think it's the opportunity cost of losing out on Warriors value.
Absolutely. With you 100%. And Uzi's always hanging out here in chat. We appreciate you so much. Kaminga Murray or Kyrie Terrence Ross FanDuel single entry?
The Kaminga side.
Definitely the Kaminga Murray side. Plus, playing Murray, I think that gives you a little extra upside. Not that you need to worry about Warriors value. They're just so cheap and the opportunity is going to be there. But I do like pairing a little bit of DeJounte Murray plus 10-2 over on FanDuel. Very, very doable. Justo, $2. Harden or Giannis FanDuel last man in, Greg?
Giannis.
Same. Jeff Campbell, $2, just because we like those. Thank you so much. And Bill W., founder of AA, JTA and Murray or Paul and Claxton, that is DK Cash.
Well, I'm not considering Claxton for cash. I think he's a good tournament play because, like I said, there's still some minutes uncertainty. Like Eric said, he's only played 17 minutes in each of his first two games since coming back from injury. Now, LaMarcus Aldridge played in those games. LaMarcus Aldridge is out today. The last time that Nick Claxton started and Aldridge was out, he played 33 minutes. So I think there's significant upside for his minute. It just comes with risk that I wouldn't want to take on in a cash game, particularly there's so much good value plays to look at today. So not for cash games. Tournaments, though, I am getting to Claxton.
All right. Jeff Campbell did have a question here. DeRozan and Looney or Harden and JTA? No site given.
It was Harden and
JTA, your favorite, or DeRozan and Looney?
JTA.
FanDuel. Okay, FanDuel. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, so let me recalibrate that. So for FanDuel, it's still going to be the Looney side, assuming he starts.
Lie. Great show, guys. Always enjoy the laughs. We're happy to provide them for you. This is so much fun. We get to talk sports every day. We get to hang out with you guys. And for the most part, I would say those interactions have been very great. So once again, we appreciate you just as much as you may or may not appreciate us. I guess that's that's redundant. But either way, let's talk center here. Nikola Jokic, he's good at fantasy basketball. He's your favorite spend up. How much of him are you getting to on this slate?
He's in, now that he's in, it's hard to not have him in nearly everything at this point. I have some lineups. I have Giannis lineups. I have Harden lineups. I'm overweight to Giannis. I'm overweight to Jokic today. I don't find it that difficult to get up to these guys. Harden with Irving in the lineup while he's still viable. I just don't have him projected nearly as highly as Jokic or Giannis. So, I mean, like my top projected lineup both DraftKings and FanDuel has Jokic and Giannis in it.
Well, not only that, but like they aren't at the guard position. James Harden to DeJounte Murray take up, I don't know how many Warriors we listed off. Poole, Gary Payton, Moses Moody, Damian Lee, Chris Chiozza, if you wanted to take that random dart. You have opportunities for some of these guys with no Klay Thompson, no Steph Curry, no Otto Porter, no Draymond Green, no Andrew Wiggins. I just named a lot of guys. That creates a ton of opportunity, and I just prefer them. So thank you so much. Skylar Barnard, before we get to the rest of the center spot, Kuminga, Moody, Poole, and GP2, okay, in one line on DK, absolutely for me.
Let's see. So it was, I don't have an issue with that. And I think this is kind of a good talking point too. What is the most amount of Warriors you have in any one tournament lineup today?
I have some fives. I do have some fives.
Yep, I do too. Just looking through my lineups.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 4 on FanDuel, that's pretty easy to say. But yep, I have 5 on DK as well.
Awesome. We are on the same page there then. That's a good thing to be. Frankie Lofton, would you do Jokic, Butler, and Siakam in $40 entry?
I don't really like Siakam that much today.
Okay. Siakam, I think it makes sense on FanDuel. I don't know what site he's talking about here.
He said DK. I'm pretty sure.
Did? Would you do Jokic, Butler, and Siakam in $40?
It's the $40 entry. There isn't a $40 buy-in point on FanDuel.
Weird because I feel like they've kind of been copying each other, doing the same thing. Like they both have the 88s now as well, which was something that I kind of like playing over on the FanDuel side. Now DraftKings has the 88, and that's been every single day now for a while too. So appreciate you keeping that straight. Siakam less so on DK for me. So Frank Curcio, Gordon, Scotty Barnes, Carter, last man in.
Let's see. So those names, Gordon, that's Scotty. Wendell Carter Jr. for me.
Okay. I am updating some stuff here. All right. Let's do the rest of the center position here because people need the info here. We're not going anywhere, though. We're going to be able to cover a lot of this for you guys. Karl Anthony Towns kind of makes another interesting spend up. He's definitely shown some ceiling. We know there's no D'Angelo Russell, him and Edwards. I know Edwards is a guy you're overweight to. Are you overweight to Cat as well?
Let's see. So most recent run of ownership, we have Karl Anthony Towns we just got one from 3 minutes ago if you haven't refreshed it.
I just refreshed now. Thank you.
14% on DK, FanDuel 12%. I am to Edwards. I am not to. Actually, I'm almost exactly in line with the field on Towns.
Right.
I'm overweight on Edwards, though.
I am overweight on Edwards. I'm at the field on Towns as well. I'm just getting it all updated. We've got 4 minutes left to go, y'all. Get your lineups in. Don't pull an Eric. It would be awful. Let's see. Do we have any other super chats? We do. Bill W again. Give me someone off of GTA under 4.2K on DK utility cash. So GTA is like 3K. That
I like how you keep calling him. I like how you keep calling him Grand Theft Auto.
Why do I say that? JTA.
Because of Grand Theft Auto, it's like muscle memory.
Yeah, it is. It's literally what it is. By the way, the Vice. Oh, I loved that game. That was so fun.
So under 4,200, it's still going to end up being a lot of Warriors players. All right. So who do I have projected the highest? Is it under 4,200 or 42 and below?
4,200 and below.
So it has to be he said under 42. So I'm going to assume 41. It's funny. I'm going to look through my projections. It's going to be all Warriors players that pop up. All right. So Gary Payton, he's probably in your lineup already. Kuminga, he's probably in your lineup already. Let's see, scrolling who comes up next. Jackson Hayes would be next for me. I have Jackson Hayes project for more fantasy points than Juan Toscano Anderson.
So green checkmark is trolling me because of his name and existence. And now he's saying that Greg's mom knows about muscle memory.
Yeah, she does. She's a good athlete. She's the fastest one in my family. People don't know this about my family. My mom is quick. This is like it's a really dumb thing that we talk about my family. My mom is really fast though. There's not even any innuendo there. It's just a fact.
I'm offended for your mom. I'm not. It's
why?
I don't know. It's not exactly.
Because she had people come over and do work on the house. My dad was away on business trips and they were noisy. Like, I don't understand why that would be at all something to, I don't understand.
I don't get you. I don't understand.
Yeah, there's nothing to be offended by. It's just, it was on the up and up.
Greg, just get your lineups, and I'm literally just gonna get my
lineups are in. I'm good to go.
Mine aren't. I'm finishing it up here. Let's see. Any other questions? Oh my God, what is going on? Handymen. Yes, handymen. Very handy. Very handy. All right, I'm done. Lineups are in. Let's rock, everybody. We're not going anywhere. We've got another half hour to hang out with you all. We're talking a little Jock Market. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be able to react to one game that's going on. Always makes it easy that Greg and I don't have to decide which game we're going to be focused on. We can kind of react to how our lineups are doing in the moment, talk you through some of the Jock Market process of what we're going to be doing. Edwin Neves, that's a great GIF. That's the correct GIF for the situation. I don't care about Wednesday news site, but thank you so much to that. Greg, anything you want the people to know here as we approach lock?
No, I mean, play a lot of Warriors, guys. Stick around for the next 30 minutes because we're going to be talking about Jock Market, and there's a pretty good chance other news breaks. I mean, most importantly is going to be we could get the Warriors starting lineup in the next 30 minutes. But other than that, stick around, watch us talk about some Jock Market. It's always fun. We're going to be sweating the games. That's going to be a good time. What else are we waiting for on the injury report? We have the Suns guys. DeAndre Ayton's questionable. Jay Crowder's questionable. Since we usually talk about late swap here, I guess we should talk about this. I'm assuming that Ayton and Crowder both end up playing today because they were upgraded to questionable. How did you handle them?
I have them both in. I've got both of them in, and that's, again, I still think you can take the odd shots on Chris Paul and Devin Booker and their ceilings. I think that that's still going to be a thing. I don't think it affects Chris Paul nearly as much as it might affect a Devin Booker, simply a scoring center, and Ayton can actually be played through a little bit. So a slight tick down for him, but Chris Paul, I still think, has a crazy amount of upside. He's started to show that of late, that with no Cameron Payne, there's a tiny bit more minutes that are in store for him every single night. And that has proved profitable if you've been playing a lot of Chris Paul.
Yeah, we've seen some really, really big games from Chris Paul lately. I don't know if it's really that correlated to Ayton and like, do you think that Ayton and Crowder being out has been the reason that Paul has played well?
No, I think it's Cameron Payne just being out. I think Cameron Payne, with the absence of him, I mean, Elf Payton is not playing the Cameron Payne role. It's impossible for him to play the Cameron Payne role. He's not that good. He's definitely not fantasy viable. And I think that just gives a couple more minutes upside, or at least, Cameron Payne has been a guy who could share the floor at times with Chris Paul. It didn't happen very often, but definitely more of an offensive focused dude. And now Chris Paul comes in, and there's really no letdown on the guy. He's been incredible. And I think also maybe there's something to be said about the window for this Suns team. It's now. Like, if they're going to do things at the deadline to try to bolster it, they need to do it now. The West is down. The East, I would say, is better for the first time in maybe a long time. Well, last year they were better too, but this is the opportunity the Suns need to have. And I bet a guy like Chris Paul, who's still chasing that title, he's pretty aware of it.
Yeah, and by the way, something really annoying, because I'm just pulling up the NBA games, and there's only one game that starts the 7 p.m. time slot, that Pistons-Pelicans game. So I'm just going to pull it up. And of course, NBA.com, they're making me do the I'm not a robot verification thing, which is a pain in the ass to it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do when I'm in the middle of the show is find where the stoplights are.
Well, I'm going to pull up Jock Market while you're at it. Again, I hate those things, the authentications, but the world's different now, and people are trying to steal stuff all the time. So I understand it. Pull up the free Jock Market IPO pricing while you're at it here too. We're going to be talking through Jock Market. Once again, use promo code Awesemo, get a $50 deposit bonus. So put in 50, get 50 back. Plus, if you put that $100 to good use that you get through that deposit bonus, you'll get every single cent that you lose up to that $100 refunded into your account. So if there's a devastating injury, if there's something that happens where a player gets in foul trouble and they just don't come close to achieving their upside, you're going to get it refunded into your account. So it's truly a free roll. No better time than now to go deposit. So play along with us here. We've got some super chats coming in here. We'll talk about that in 1 second. I appreciate you guys so much. Also get that like count up. We need to keep that thing rising here. We've got 2.7K of you guys still hanging out. Lots of news still going to be breaking. Lots of things we're going to be breaking down in this half hour. But I want to give Jock Market a little bit of attention here at the get-go. We've got Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, rightfully the three most expensive players on the fair IPO price. Karl Anthony Towns sitting there at $13. Lots of different dudes that we can go to on the top end. Does anybody stand out as a great value out of the expensive pieces for you, Greg, over on Jock Market today?
All right, so let me refresh and see what some of the asking prices are for these guys. It's refreshing. All right, so now we can compare some of it. We have a fair IPO price for Jokic set at $19.80. The asking price is only $17.09, so that almost immediately stands out as somebody to try to get shares of. You know, everybody else, Giannis looks good. Harden actually looks a little bit undervalued as well. Ask price $12.95. We have the fair IPO price at $15.80 for Harden. I had actually, while we're doing the show, I had a bid I was winning on shares of Harden, and I was winning it right up until like 30 seconds before the slate locked, and somebody outbid me. But those two, Jokic and Harden on my end, both look like guys that are going undervalued.
That's the worst. But it's something that happens. You got to be quick to the draw on some of this stuff. And, you know, when you're on a show, it's a little bit different. But, you know, if you guys are watching at home, it's pretty easy to be able to see as that's changing, getting closer to that 7 p.m. Eastern time lock. It locks usually like right before that first lock on DraftKings or FanDuel. So if you guys are playing and trying to get shares of players, know that it locks just a tiny bit early over on Jock Market. But I'm with you. I think James Harden, maybe because of that GTD next to his name, you get that game time decision tag. Maybe it makes his price go down a little bit. Maybe people who aren't paying as much attention as what you and I are doing these shows, or you guys in chat for sure that are watching at home and putting the time and effort into this. They're seeing Harden with the thing next to his name, and they just don't want to click on it. So $13, that's nearly $3 underpriced. So I really like that call. Definitely want to get to some shares of that here. I'm going to try to buy one as we're going. $13. Yes. All right. So I got one share. Got one. That's beautiful. We're going to continue going through some of these here as well while we're at it. And as you're going and finding some value for the people, we got Pirtle for the win from Adam Palmer, $2. How do I use my member super chat? Ask Jordan Klein. Jordan Klein knows all. He likes to make fun of me for how technologically illiterate I am at this point, even though I think I'm okay at it. But the guy go ahead.
Yeah, let him come in with the God mic in your beautiful voice. You don't use the modifier though.
So in the super chat, whenever you see that $sign down there, you can click it, and if you have like your free member milestone chat, it'll pop up. It'll be one of the options. There's a super sticker, super chat, and then there's a free member milestone chat. You'll see it if you're eligible for it. So it happens once a month, and you'll get it.
Look at that. Jordan Klein from the clouds, people. From the clouds. God Mike.
By the way, I want to address this because Carlos Manzo would ask, where were we last Friday? I was out at dinner. It was my dad's birthday, so I went out with my family. Eric got the world's greatest dog.
I did get the world's greatest dog.
To be honest, my mind was filled with all the Warrior stuff and whatnot for this slate, so I wasn't even bringing. But I was a little disappointed to see that I was still doing the show with Eric and not Duke Lindquist, who is now my favorite being in the world.
If you guys don't know, Greg is the Godfather. It's Greg the Godfather. Yep. I think you will only be addressed as such from here on out. But Greg, officially the Godfather of my Duke. I'll bring him on a stream one time here. No doubt about it. I'll bring him on. But we got to get those likes up because those likes don't come up. I don't think the pup can come out. I can't just be shelling him out for anything. I got to get 1,500 likes here on a stream at some point in time. Then you can meet the greatness that is him. Or you could also head to my Twitter at Eric Lindquist. Why don't you head to at Ehrenberg DFS while you're at it too? My guy over on the Twitters. We both need followers. We both need attention. Please go do that for us. Orton's Neckbeard, who did have a member super chat. He knows how to use it. Adam Palmer. This is how. Flat out just like did it and showed him.
Yeah, did it with no instructions. Did he leave Nope, no question. Just showed him how to do it. So something else that's funny about Eric's dog being named Duke is my best friend Matt growing up. His first dog's name was Duke, and also named it after a college. And then his family ended up getting like 6 dogs, and they were all named after different colleges. But that aside, happy that there's another Duke in my life.
Well, he's a good little boy. There's no doubt about it. Bernese Mountain Dog. I didn't think I could like a dog this much. And I love dogs. I always have, but like I always had smaller dogs growing up and I always wanted to get a bigger one. But this guy, he's already over 20 pounds. He's nice, big and fluffy. And God, is he nice. So thank you so much to everybody for reaching out, and very nice to hear from them. DeMarcus Cousins got ruled out. Does that do anything for you on Jock Market or your lineups?
No, because I actually had him in, but playing 0 minutes before this.
That's probably the right approach. So I'm not going to be worried about it whatsoever. Did Duke play doggy lacrosse? No, even though, Duke generally has a really good lacrosse program. No doubt about that. Let's see. Oh, that was Awesemo. What's up, Mike? I didn't see that was you. I was just reading the comment there quick. Congratulations, Eric. Thank you. Proud new pops. Looking at the rest of the board here, guys, we got Jonas Valanciunas, 795. I mean, that game's just getting going here. I want to be paying attention to it. Hasn't started, has it?
By the way, somebody misunderstood what we said and thought your dog's name is Duck, not Duke, which is very funny. But no, it is Duke Lindquist. And it is I'm not even, no hyperbole here. It is the world's greatest dog. It is just a ball of fluff.
Get us over 1,000 likes. I'll bring him out. Get us over 1,000 likes. I'll bring him out to finish out the show. I'll have to walk out for 1 minute, just at the very end, just as we're getting to lock. Get over 1,000 likes. I'll bring him out.
Oh, we did. I think Legarian Bridgewater's posting that we missed a super chat of his. Is Spencer Dinwiddie a cash game lock on DK?
Yeah, well, I said we were going to get to these. I wanted to get to these. But
okay, well,
Legarian Bridgewater, we might as well. Yes, he's a cash game lock for me.
Play him in cash games.
Love that call. Love you guys asking great questions in these super chats. Always applicable, always helpful. We want Doggo. Yes, get over 1,000 likes. We'll do that to finish it out. Guys, let's finish this out here as well. I'm looking at, there's really nothing that I want more. Spencer Dinwiddie is $5.99 on Jock Market. That feels low.
Let's see. What do we have for a fair IPO price
right now? But his projection's 28. I guess the missed shots thing might be part of it, but I find it surprising.
I also have, for me personally, I had a slightly higher Dinwiddie projection than what we had. So, but this is a $6 ask price is fairly significant for a slate of this size. That's a stay away for me.
All right. Juan Toscano Anderson's going for $5.25. I just want to throw that out there because it's funny.
No, thanks. Let's go through all of the chalk players on the Warriors and see what their asking prices are. Kind of curious about that now. So Jordan Poole, $773. That feels steep.
That is big. 36-point projection there for him. $773. Fair IPO price that we have of him of $660. So that's going to be a pass. It's so weird to see him next to like Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. It's crazy. That's
the way. So let's see. Who are the three players above and below him? So Jordan Poole is, let's see where. Oh, here he is, 19. So yeah, the three players above him for today are Bam Adebayo, Kyle Kuzma, and Jonas Valanciunas in the Jock Market projections. The three players below him are, like you said, Holiday, Middleton, and Pirtle.
All right, Holiday, Middleton, Pirtle. I like those. They're fine, but they're going a little bit overvalued here now. It's just relative. Seeing his name amongst them is mind blowing, but that's what happens when you are the only guard out there and you average north of 1.1 DraftKings points per minute with them alongside you. So Kuminga's up at 657. That's the next Warrior that's on the board. That is absurd. Gary Payton's up to 642. That's absurder. Kevon Looney's at 556. Don't want to be getting to any of these guys. Basically, if you're playing a Jock Market, I don't know if there's a single guy that I would want to be getting right now. But if you're watching the game and you see something strange with the rotation, if somebody surprising ends up starting, again, we could be getting that starting lineup any chance here or any second here, and we'll be able to react to it. But like, I don't see a single Golden State guy I'd want to invest in today.
No, and obviously here's where DFS, in terms of what we're looking at, DraftKings and FanDuel, is totally different from Jock Market because it's very much based on public sentiment. And I think a lot of people look at like, oh, I just need to get Jordan Poole today. It's totally different though when there's a set cost on Jordan Poole versus when it changes based on how much people like him. And now all of a sudden we're getting to a point where Jordan Poole is getting, a fair IPO price the fair IPO price we have from is 660, but his current bid was up to 778. So for reference, these are the players that we have projected as about where Jordan Poole is getting bought out right now. Fred VanVleet, Jonas Valanciunas, Anthony Edwards. Those are the players we have correctly priced at this salary that Jordan Poole is. It's just so expensive.
All right. We got PJ Tucker's playing. We saw that a little bit earlier. Show me the dog. Show me the dog. Hey, you guys relax. We're going to get over that 1,000 number. Then we can bring the dog out a little bit later here. But this is Jock Market. This is also us waiting for some of these guys to come out with their lineups, specifically Golden State. That would be fantastic. I'm just looking through Jock Market. A lot of these guys are a little bit overpriced. Jackson Hayes is at 330. I do want to kind of see what his start gets off to here. Jonas Valanciunas got an early foul here in the first 50 seconds. He had a charge. So we're looking at a possibility where Jackson Hayes could be playing some 5 or Hernan Gomez could be out there a little bit earlier than anticipated. That would be somebody to really invest in. If you got 24 minutes of Hernan Gomez, his projection looks drastically different.
Yeah. And like you said, offensive foul on Jonas Valanciunas. It was a push off. I didn't really see who it was he pushed off on, but that aside, yeah, Valanciunas just picked up the foul. If anybody's watching along with me, it's a stoppage in play right now, but they're showing the highlight of that. Once the game restarts, I'll say where I'm at in terms of time here at 11:04, 11:03, 11:02. It's going to be weird also in terms of trying to sync up with me because YouTube is on a delay. And then also when I'm watching on NBA.com, that's also slightly on a delay. But Corey Joseph just hit a 3, 0 points so far for the Pelicans.
I would never leave dog poop on a sidewalk. Are you kidding me? That is absurd. That is a terrible take. I would never be that guy.
What was they asked?
Eric going to be the guy in I Love You Man, which I thought was a better movie than most people did. I mean, it wasn't the best movie ever, but Jason Segel and Paul Rudd, pretty darn good. But I Love You Man. He's saying that Eric going to be the guy in I Love You Man that leaves dog poops on the sidewalk then screams at people. I think not, y'all. I think not.
How many likes are we at?
Are we at dog territory?
I would assume so.
960.
Oh
we're not
my
there
God,
yet.
guys, 40 more likes. And by the way, if you guys don't do it, let me make sure I'm doing it right now. I'm going to be upset because I want to see my godson today.
Oh, by the way, this is maybe the cutest thing possible, but on Instagram. So by the help of our NBA tip-off chat, that would be Jordan Klein. That would be Greg Ehrenberg. That would be Joey Corman. His Instagram handle is Duke's burner account. Duke's burner account.
Yeah, he's and let the people know what kind of dog is he, because or else they might be kind of confused.
Bernese Mountain Dog.
There we go. That's the cute tie. And if people didn't know what kind of dog he was, they weren't going to get that. But yeah, you guys, you got to like the video because
Greg wants to see this dog.
Yeah, I just want to hang out with my godson.
2 likes away. All right. I'll be right back. Greg, talk about Jock Market for 1 minute.
All right. We could go for longer than a minute. Guys, first of all, I love you. This is huge that Eric's going to get the dog. If you guys want a sneak preview, I think Eric tweeted about Duke, was it 3 days ago on Twitter when he first got him, brought him home. Legitimately most adorable dog ever. We've got the Pistons Pelicans game now is at 6-4. Let's see what I missed while we were trying to egg you guys on to get likes. So we're at, here it is. Here he comes. I see his tail. I can't see the rest of him. Big reveal.
All right, ready?
I think we're ready. Yeah, he looks like a stuffed animal. Look, he's happy to be on camera too.
Look at this guy. Oh, hello. Yes, Duke. Hello, my guy. How you doing?
Is so exciting.
Let me throw this on.
Oh, putting the cans on him? I thought you were putting the cans on the dog.
No. Oh, that would have been funny. Hello, Duke. Oh, he wants to just bite the wires. What he wants to do. Nope. Hello. Hey, Duke. Oh, hang on.
He's not radio.
He wants to just do the raw.
He's not radio trained yet.
Oh, hey, buddy. Say hi to everybody. Hello. This is Duke, everybody. Duke Lindquist. What's up? Bernice.
Is he a middle name?
Not yet. Chat wants to come up with one. Maybe we could do that. We could figure
middle
something
name.
out. Duke Quack Lindquist, maybe?
But by the way, for people who can't see right now, Duke has massive paws.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, look out. He's going to be gigantic.
Yes, he is. Certainly is. Oh,
if you made a stuffed animal of a dog, that is what the dog would be.
Yeah, he's fluffy as all can be. He's 11 weeks. He's got the massive paws. He's going to be growing into it. We got him to the vet this morning. Super healthy, super happy. And my God, this thing, I didn't think I could love a puppy this much, but hey, love you too. Yes. All right, guys, that's Duke. Thank you so much for entertaining me there. And we're out.
All right, there we go. That's going to be the highlight of my day. So let's see. What did we miss in the Pistons-Pelicans game while we were looking? Listen, this was obviously a wholesome show. We got to bring our families in. I got to talk about my mom. Eric got to talk about his dog. We really got to involve the families in here, which is what we really do care about, is let you guys know that we have outside lives here. So far, Pelicans, Pistons. Brandon Ingram, quick start, 5 points, a rebound, and an assist on the Pistons side of the game. Cade Cunningham has 2 points, a rebound, and a steal. Pretty spread out scoring, though. Every single player in the Pistons starting lineup has 2 points, only one for Sadiq Bey, but pretty spread out other than that. And now we could start diving into some more of the Jock Market prices and see where some of these guys have gotten to.
Yeah, he's going to be a big boy. He's going to be 130 pounds. So looking forward to that day. Holy mother. Not going to even recognize that guy, but super cute. Thank you, everybody. Let's get back to it. Looking at Jock Market. What is that score at, did you say?
It's 11-10 right now.
Jackson Hayes he just made a bucket, first bucket. So 2 points, 2 boards. Decent enough start for 3,600 on FanDuel, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's and did you look at the scoring for the Pistons now? Every single starter is 2 points. They have 10 points, a bucket for each of them.
Well, that's good because I have 0% of them. So I would appreciate if they could just go 10, 5, and 5, each one of them. That'd be great.
By the way, Jackson Hayes just accidentally scored in his own bucket.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did. He went for a rebound and accidentally tipped it in.
That's amazing.
No fantasy points for that.
University of Texas. He was a monster, by the way. I remember him playing against Iowa State, and it did not go well for Iowa State a couple times.
He should get a rebound for that.
Oh, we got CS asking another question. Man, still flamboyant. He still likes me. I appreciate you, CS. DK. So DK question, CP3 and Booker or DeJounte and Edwards? It is the second one, not close for me.
Yeah, it is DeJounte Murray and Anthony Edwards. Something else is I do not generally love playing Chris Paul and Devin Booker in the same lineup. If it's a small slate and there's no choice, whatever, so be it. Big slate, I don't think it's optimal to be playing Booker and Paul together.
All right, Cade Cunningham shooting foul. We'll see who's at the line here. 5-1-1, Brandon Ingram. Glad that I got to a little bit over on the FanDuel slate with the help of Greg Ehrenberg. See, this is why I love doing shows with him, because he corrects my wrongs when I kind of have something that I'm overlooking a little bit. That was definitely one of them. Pretty easy to do on this kind of a slate, but I always try to look at the 7 p.m. game and give it the most attention considering late swap exists. Just kind of make my stands early and continue to build lineups throughout the night. Seems to be the best process. But going back to Jock Market, I'm looking at some other pieces of value. We obviously got Nikola Jokic ruled in. Going to be harder for me to want to get to anybody, and I do mean anybody from that Denver team now. Cat is pretty expensive, but
other than Jokic, obviously.
Well, other than Jokic, yeah, Jokic is a smash. He's still too cheap at 17-19. So if you want to be firing that, I mean, you could use that $50 Awesemo deposit bonus, get $100, buy 5 shares of Jokic, and I feel pretty confident you could be making $7 per share by the end of the night.
Here's with the current asking price on Jokic, you make money as long as he's one of the top 3 scorers on the slate.
It's true.
What?
CS said Forever Flamboyant, and I feel like that's a great fragrance name. That would be like my fragrance by Eric Lindquist. Forever Flamboyant by Lindquist.
That's Eric's next. Like that's Eric's next career after DFS is done with him. He's going to be moving on to his perfume line.
Yep, I'm going to be hanging out with TB12 brand and pushing perfume at Bloomingdale's. So check it out. That's what I'm going to be doing. It's going to smell like Duke too. He's fluffy, just warm fuzzball. Looking through some of these prices. I'm trying to find, usually I can find one or two really cheap options that I want to get to. I think all the value today on Jock Market is on the top end. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird this has happened. We talked about it last Tuesday. Also, typically when you and I do these Jock Market shows on Tuesdays, it's usually, 3-4 game Tuesdays. Like for whatever reason, the way the NBA schedule has worked out, the last 2 Tuesdays have been full size slates. So it totally changes everything, because then all those guys who are, like 3K-ish type players on DraftKings, $3,500 on FanDuel, it's hard for them to have value the way the Jock Market scoring works, because you need these guys to be one of the top scorers on the slate for your shares of them to return value. And it's just not that likely on a slate of this size.
Great point. Man, Shane Daly, $5. Great dog. Thank you. Just got done putting down my Aussie Shepherd. Looks similar breed. First of all, I'm very sorry to hear that, because dogs, there's a reason that they do call them man's best friend. It's because it is impossible not to become attached to things that are as nice and sweet as those are. But the breed, Bernese Mountain Dog. So he's a burner. I love him to death already. It's been like 3 days, but it has been an excellent 3 days. I'm looking to hopefully about 3,000 plus more of them. That would be great.
Yeah. And you said Duke is what, 11 weeks old?
11 weeks old. He's 11 weeks. But yeah, in the next 6 months, he's going to be over 100 pounds. And then I believe he continues growing up to like nearly 2 years old, which I found fascinating today at the vet.
Do they tell you how big his dad is?
His dad's 135 pounds.
It's a big boy.
He's a big boy. So he's got some time there. Pushing P is pushing perfume. Wow. Mike Lawrence, that is a deep cut. I appreciate that one. But anyway, I just want to say one more time, Shane Daly, very sorry to hear that. Real talk. We got 5 minutes left here, Greg. Anything that you're kind of focusing on for your lineups here before lock of the next games we have on the docket? We've got Washington and Milwaukee. So a lot of Dinwiddie, a lot of Giannis. I think those are two guys. Miami and Toronto, maybe some Jimmy Butler and Bam. Anything you really are focusing on for these next two?
Not really. Maybe if we got to a point where, let's say the Warriors game was the first game on the slate and we had information on all these chalk plays, maybe I'd be looking to get to contrarian guys or something like that if it wasn't going my way. But we've only had this one game start, Pelicans, Pistons. By the way, Jackson Hayes did not end up being nearly as popular as I think we thought he could have been.
What is his ownership on FanDuel? Because I didn't play any on DK.
On DK, he is 13%.
Oh, I did get to some. I got 15%. Never mind. That must have snuck in at the end.
Let's see. FanDuel. I'm pulling up the $9. Oh, he's a lot more. He's 30% on FanDuel, so a lot more popular there.
Yeah, where you could play him at power forward, he was a lot more valuable. Where we're trying to pay for the Looney, the one Toscano Anderson, if you're so brave as to do that, but specifically Jokic, Towns, massive ceilings that exist on this slate at that position. Bam Adebayo, even 8K up against Toronto. I don't think that's the worst start to take. You can play power forward center guys like Wendell Carter Jr. You could be firing up, even the likes of, if you wanted to get different, Montrezl Harrell is a guy that randomly was brought up by one Ridden Pack. And I hate to bring that up 3 minutes before the show, but he thought that there might be some extra offensive ability with no Bradley Beal. He thinks Montrezl Harrell could be a guy to fill that role. So I'm not going to take credit for that play. I don't even know if I'm going to be utilized. Yeah, I'm not utilizing that play, but Ridden Pack, that was somebody that I know he was on. He's really good at DFS and I try to listen to him. Yeah,
it's hard for me to project the minutes though.
Same.
Just given how the Wizards' big man rotation has shook up. What do you make of, and there's only 3 minutes left. I assume part of the process there for Ryan is that Daniel Gafford was a DNP coach's decision last game. Pretty wild. They signed Gafford to a big contract extension in the offseason. And it's not to say that I thought it was a bad contract or anything like that at the time. I thought it had upside. But to give Gafford that contract just half a season later, essentially have him looks like Valanciunas got hit pretty hard. Is he bleeding?
Oh, shit. Well, he's got 12 fantasy points. He's the high scorer in the game here right now. If he got hit hard, I'm going to Jock Market and I am getting Gomez.
He is going right to the locker room. He took an elbow. He took an elbow to the face.
Buy as many shares as you possibly can.
Well, let's see.
Gomez.
I can't tell. Did he take an elbow or did he get scraped in the eye? I'm trying to figure out because he was blinking.
10 shares of Willie Hernangomez.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what happened here. No, he's rubbing his temple.
Concussion or something, maybe.
Hey, looks okay. He's coming out of the game for now, but he looks uncomfortable on the bench, though.
Well, maybe if Hernangomez can get off to this is just going to be more minutes than you would expect. He generally checks in around like the 2-minute mark or 3-minute mark for J-Val, plays the backup center here now. That's what we saw yesterday, at least. Let me go to Popcorn Machine to double check. I want to show my work a little bit here.
I would assume he'll be back in. I think he'll be back in 3 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. But he does look a little banged up on the bench. It's also hard to say because you look at him too, and first he's rubbing his temple, then he's blinking his eye, then he's like checking to make sure his jaw is okay. And I'm like, I don't even know what the injury is here without any volume on. But yeah, he is out of the game for right now, but on the bench, didn't go to the locker room.
We got Blue Duck DFS, 2 fouls on Herb Jones as well. I'm not trying to talk a concussion into existence. I have a lot of J-Val on FanDuel. I would not want that.
Let's
400 over there.
I'm just now looking at the game to see if there's anybody talking to him or anything. I think he should, just kind of based on what I'm seeing on the bench, I would assume he would be back in a few minutes. He didn't go to the locker room. He's not talking to a trainer at this point. So yeah, I think he'll probably be back out there to start the second quarter.
Looking at the Detroit side, though, I said I had zero interest in anybody. Right now, Isaiah Stewart, not even to double digits over on the old FanDuel.com or on Jock Market. And he is your high scorer here through the first quarter. Obviously, still, 4 minutes left to go here. And at Brandon Ingram with a steal. Oh, Brandon Ingram is just destroying right now. He's just started to go. 9.7 now, a steal, 11.7. Great call by Greg Ehrenberg. This is why you watch Live Before Lock.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing with Brandon Ingram is just how many minutes is he ultimately going to end up playing. He hasn't come out of the game yet, and we have 4 minutes left in the first quarter. It just seems like we're getting full lob in minutes, and he doesn't seem, at least visually, doesn't look like he's hampered at all by that ankle injury.
And his rostership here today is 6.3% on FanDuel. I have 32%. So thank you to you.
Look at you.
I ended up playing 21 line. I guess that would be why I was like, why am I getting to an odd number? I had 21 lineups today. So throwing it out there, but that was all you. I had zero interest before you even said his name.
And then you ended up with more of them than I had.
Yeah, I'm a huge stan. I love this man. Just didn't know what those minutes would look like. It looks like they could be a lot higher than what I was anticipating. Guys, we are all done. Obviously, we went a minute over. Don't forget, use promo code Awesemo. Check out Jock Market. No better time than now to go take advantage of it, especially if you can get some Willie Hernangomez in the event that there's some limitation about J-Val. Make sure you're subscribed to all of the notifications from Premium Discord. News God will keep you apprised of that situation. But Greg, any final words for the people?
No, good luck tonight. Pay attention to that Warriors starting lineup. That's going to be something that massively impacts who we should be looking at there. So we'll see how that shakes out. We could potentially see a weird starting lineup.
All right. He's Greg. He doesn't have a dog. I'm Eric. I obviously do. We'll see you guys later.
You win this round, Eric.